and my mic was muted the whole time. Welcome, everybody. Welcome yet again to another episode of the True Crime Talk Show brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast. My name is Brendan.
And I am Malia. Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome everybody. Sorry we are a little bit late tonight, later than the standard time. We are currently looking at some new studio space. So it pushed everything back just a little bit, but you know, if we get that going, it should be awesome, a great thing. And we'll be excited to take all of you with us through the trip. What?
Nothing.
In the new studio space, I'm planning on, you know, having live chairs for everybody out there that can watch us. And there will be a state-of-the-art, what is that called? Like a suction tube transporter. They're already laying the tubes now.
You mean like at the bank?
Yeah, but for people. You just get in there and off you go.
Didn't Willy Wonka have that in the movie? Like a suction transporter?
I have no idea. It's definitely my idea, okay? As long as I'm not the one testing it, it's my idea. But anyways, welcome everybody. Super excited to have you here tonight. We have quite a bit to talk about. And some of it good, some of it not so good, some of it in between, and some of it is just downright scary, to be honest. But we're super happy to have all of you here. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit those stars. Make sure you give us a rating. Leave some comments under the video. Come hang out in the chat. For anyone on all of the other, I don't even know how many keyed platforms we're on now, 7, 8, something like that. If you want to engage in the chat, you guys, the most active chat is on YouTube. Now, I know we have quite a few people in other countries and stuff, and most of our views come from, you know, a different time zone. But if you want, I believe you can still hop on YouTube and engage in the chat regardless where you're at. So yeah, come hang out and hit that like button. Give us a rating. You can find us on all social media at Thought Riot Podcast, spelled all the way out. You can find us on every major podcast platform at Thought Riot Podcast, spelled all the way out. And we will get right into it. So what are we talking about tonight?
So we're going to touch on the alibi again tonight, but since that's like kind of old news at this point, do you want to do that last?
We can. Yeah.
We tend to ramble when it comes to the Idaho4 case.
Yeah, because it makes the least amount of sense.
Yeah.
So I do. A lot of times I find my best think tank ideas, where to go in the next part of the investigation, through just talking out loud.
Good points. So yeah, we're going to touch on that because, you know, Vinnie Politan, he has his own like a little podcast thing he's doing now, separate from court TV, on his own time. And I watched one of his episodes recently about the alibi, and actually it was pretty thought-provoking. And it made me think of like some questions and looking at it from some other perspectives. Also, we are going to talk about the scammer / kidnapper / ransom situation that's going on in the Sebastian Rogers case. And we are going to talk about Sade Robinson.
Okay.
Who is a woman who went missing April 1st, and her body parts were...
That's who is on the thumb right here, correct?
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was a 19-year-old young black woman, and she went on a first date and literally was reported missing the next day by her family, and then body parts found the day after. And the man who's accused of killing her They're calling the next Jeffrey Dahmer.
Okay. Did they get him?
Yeah,
Is
they
he
got
arrested?
him. They got
Okay,
him, but I
okay.
think the concern is that he has been at this for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I say we get into it. That's interesting. Okay, yeah, let's get into it because I already have a lot of questions. Where they found her and where it happened, is that like where they believe his dumping ground is? And what I mean by that is a lot of times when you have a serial ender, they have a very specific preference where they put their victims, or what they do to their victims, right? You have some that freeze, you have some that tend to the body after, just strange power structure, control, total control of the victim. So yeah, I'm interested to hear about it for sure. It's great that they caught the guy though.
Yeah, I think there was some concern in the beginning because they knew about him, okay?
Let me look her up.
And they detained him, and this was a thing that was going on. This was a thing that was going on for like,
is this him?
It was like a week where they detained him and they couldn't press charges quite yet. Like they just weren't quite at that point, but they didn't want to let him go. And they had a max of a 72-hour hold.
Got it.
And then they extended that by 72 hours again. And then finally they pressed like formal charges.
Okay. So maybe they just didn't have enough yet to press the charges.
Right.
Okay. I gotcha. And is this the guy we're seeing on the screen? I'm assuming so.
This is him.
Okay, because all I did is a search, and I just wanted to get a different picture of her, a larger picture of her, the victim on the right. That is Sade Robinson. And
she's so young,
assailant.
man. She's only 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he's 33.
Oh, okay.
Like 19. And this is what happens. Her mother was on Nancy Grace recently, and it was really sad. Like really sad.
I do see your comments too. Once we get to that part of the show, I'll bring that up because that's very good information. And for anyone else watching right now, you know, just because we gave a little bit of a comment in the Idaho4 and the alibi, one of our viewers here made mention that they had drove to the Wawa Park today just to get eyes on it themselves, and apparently they had lost cell service right once entering that area. So we'll touch on that once we get to that story a little bit later. But thank you for sharing that. That's wild, and what we expected, right? By looking at that map, you can see the mountain ranges of the map. We know they don't have good coverage. So
and all the reviews were saying that it didn't have good coverage as well.
Interesting.
So the man here, Maxwell Anderson, is being described as a 33-year-old bartender, Nepo baby, who is an ex-jock high school football star who has a millionaire father that ran a Milwaukee insurance brokerage. And yeah, he's being described as a Nepo baby, which I mean, it sounds like his father moved to Florida and he decided to stay in Wisconsin. But he has a pretty lengthy rap sheet, actually. I think again the concern is there's now I don't know if there's been more body parts found of other women, but I do know that it's being said a lot of young Black women have gone missing in this area. And so there's actually
preference they believe are younger Black
women.
They're
trying to tie him to it. They're trying to investigate and see if he's connected to any other murders. Now there is a task force being established, and I just saw this today, though it was posted April 17th.
Establishing a task force, that must mean they very strongly believe, because task forces, when it comes to serial enders, are one of the last things the cops want to do. I don't know why. I never got confirmation why, but we've heard it from multiple police officers' mouths saying that.
That's true. They don't want to acknowledge a serial killer. They don't want to
Yeah.
acknowledge a serial killer either. They don't even want to go there. But this man, it's obvious, could very well be one. So Representative Sheila Stubbs has spent the last 2 years asking for a task force because of this issue
Because
with
they're
missing women.
Okay.
And after Sade turned up, you know, the way she did, this really umphed, you know, gave it the umph that it needed for them to establish this task force to look into all of these African American women going missing.
Yeah.
All of the issues in their state.
Awful. That is awful.
Yeah. But I'm glad that they're doing that. Hopefully we'll get more answers and see if he's responsible for any more of these women going missing. Because that's one of the worst things for a family. That's one of the worst things for a family is not knowing what happened and never getting any answers.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing to mention too is you can tell based on how they handled the victim whether they've done it before. And what I mean by that is the evolution in serial killers, you guys, is a lot of times their first time that, you know, they end a victim, their emotions, their everything, their control and everything is they're so out of control emotionally and so heightened emotionally that a lot of times you hear from serial killers, like their first kill, they had uncontrollable laughter. They immediately had to, you know, if there's a sexual element, take care of that kind of thing, or you know, whatever their thing was. There's serial killers that sat with the victims and like Bundy, who would fix their hair and wash them and things like that. And as you get, as they continue to fine tune their process, you can tell in the victims whether they've done this before based on the amount of time it takes, what they do, things like that, or if it's their first victim. So that must be some of the clues they're looking at too.
Well, I want to get into what exactly happened, and then there are some interesting things that have come out that make me wonder. It does kind of seem like this isn't a first time for him, and if it was a first time, then I feel like he was going through the motions with other women, but not actually going through with it as a way of practicing. Possibly.
Okay. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's hear what happened.
So, hold on. Gosh dang it. So, like I said in the beginning, they were supposed to go on a date together, okay? And I'm trying to find where it talks about the text messages. Because there's texts that they sent back and forth.
Like before they planned to go on a date? Their first contact was essentially texting back and forth?
Well, yeah, because they met on Tinder. So they meet on Tinder, decide to go out, which I did hear her mom say she didn't think that he was like her type or someone, like he didn't seem like the kind of company she would keep around, which is kind of interesting. I wonder, was he a catfish?
Oh, I don't, it hasn't mentioned that.
It hasn't mentioned that from what I've seen, but I wondered why like her mom made such a big deal of that.
Okay.
But you would think if she had met him, she would have freaked out immediately if he was a catfish. So
maybe, you know, having foresight or being able to look back on any situation, and in this situation, they might be, it looks like someone said there's a link to a journal or whatever that has the details. But looking back, you can identify where things might not have looked right. You know, that could be a reason why maybe she's making a big deal about the situation, you know. But so just give the rundown. What happened? I wouldn't go into like.
I was looking for whatever you said about the
No,
journal,
just
but
give the rundown on the. We can come back to that. The outline.
hold on a second. So she was, of course, her family found. So they go on this day, okay, and we'll come back, I guess, to the text and stuff because I don't have them pulled up in front of me, but they go on this day, April 1st, okay, and they were texting back and forth. He asked her if she wants to go out to eat first, and then they go out, and apparently he takes her back to his home. And then there's been footage that's come out recently showing her car pulling out like in away from his house and neighborhood area.
Okay.
So it's believed what he did because the very next day her car is found on fire.
Okay.
And then the very same day a leg is found like washed up or in a park area.
Okay.
And the family is like reporting her missing, and it all comes together. Like that's her leg. They found her car on fire.
Sure.
It all comes together.
Gotcha.
So he was arrested during a traffic stop on April 4th, and that whole situation happened with the 72-hour hold and the 72-hour hold. And then since then, more body parts have been found, and the family is literally actively out there, boots on the ground, looking for her body.
Okay. So what it sounds like
it was a very
these,
short time frame.
While these two things were happening, there were a couple things going on. You had the car that was found on fire, and then a leg washed up that somebody found, and the cops were able to take these two situations, connect them, and realize, okay, so these two things are connected here, which the family had already called in and had been making missing persons. So once the family realized, they started going out there and looking for the rest of her, and then they're finding other people during that time.
Yeah, so April 1st, they go on the date, and then April 2nd, all of this happens, you guys.
Okay,
like
so
the very next day, her family finds her car on fire. Her leg gets found by somebody else, like a person in the public. And then it's all put together.
Okay.
And then this footage came out recently, and it's believed he took her car and literally spread her body parts across this town. All over the place.
I mean, look, I don't want anyone like this out there in the general public and our society. But if you're trying to look at it through the lens of a sociopath, that's probably one of the more effective things to do, not to get caught. So I understand why he did that.
Horrible.
But it really sucks. And I hope that they're able to find the whole of her to at least be able to close that chapter, because unfortunately she's already a victim. So, the last thing you want is the family to be forced to live on, continuing, to give him power.
Right.
In this situation.
Absolutely.
That's awful. That is awful.
It is really, really awful. So Sade was a 19-year-old technical college student that worked at a pizza shop locally. And I have heard nothing but incredible things about this young woman. Like everyone who knew her, everyone who's talked about her said she'd put a smile on everyone's face. Like she was a good time. She was very positive. And it's, again, like her mom on Nancy Grace the whole time. I just felt so bad for her.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like they had a really, really good relationship. And one thing that helped the police a lot in this situation is that she shared her location. She had a Life 360 app on her phone, and so her family could track all of her movements.
Great. Yeah.
So even considering that, this still happened, you guys. And you remember really recently we were talking about, like, what do you do when you go out on a date with somebody you don't know, like, to be the safest you could possibly be.
Yeah.
Having that safety check-in person.
100%.
In this situation,
Well,
in
for
this
one,
situation,
you don't go to their house at first. You don't.
yeah,
You don't do that unless they know ahead of time that, hey, somebody knows I'm here, or you make it seem like somebody dropped you off there. That's just, that's what I personally believe.
So I think that, I'm not trying to put
secondary.
any blame on Sade whatsoever, because it's never the victim's fault, ever. Even if you made the worst decision possible, like the riskiest decision, okay, to like just super reckless.
Yeah.
It's still not your fault if somebody chooses to harm you. That is their bad. That's their choice. They made that choice, not you. You don't okay it just because you're reckless. And I'm not even saying she was reckless in the situation. She had the Life 360 app. She was allowing people to track her location. She seemed like she was pretty safe and pretty smart. But I'm telling you, a lot of people don't think about that safety check person. And I think that is really important, because think about if she had sat there across from this guy and called her mom and was like, yeah, I'm here at this place right now, and he looks like this. I'll let you know in an hour how I'm doing,
Yeah.
And I don't plan on leaving this place or anything. You describe the man.
I don't
you
know if you
describe
need
the
to
place you
describe him.
are.
You can just
You
give
say,
a
I'll
name.
check back in an hour, or
Yeah.
his name. Say,
Yeah.
Maxwell Anderson. I'm with Maxwell Anderson. But the thing is what if
you're tiptoeing
that's
between
not the
safety.
real name?
Yeah, I hear you. However, dating is really weird, because in a situation you're tiptoeing between safety and what is socially acceptable, right? So going out on a date and sitting with somebody out in public or whatever, being able to call them and say, hey, I just wanted to check in with you and let you know that we're at this restaurant and I'm with John Doe in front of me, and I'll let you know as soon as we leave here or what we're doing. Click. That is deterrent enough. I mean, at anywhere in public, there's going to be a list of cameras normally.
I would be so obvious, and if that deters them, I want nothing to do with them. I want them to run away if they're a creep. You know what I mean?
You want them to hear you, but you don't want to be, because look, that would weird me out if I was on a date with somebody and they give my full description. That I immediately would start thinking, is my car out there okay? Are they like making sure that I'm in here so that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there is too far, okay? And giving a full-on description of the person that you just met in front of you is weird. It's weird.
I would still do it.
I wouldn't. I think name is enough. There are
What if they're
witnesses.
giving you a fake name?
There's still witnesses. There are witnesses in public. That's the point of a public.
Yeah, always stay in a very public place, obviously.
I mean, I don't think you need to always stay, as long as the person you're with knows that somebody else outside of their control knows where you are. That's what's important. Somebody they don't know knows where you're at and that you're with someone.
I saw people questioning if she had possibly been drugged at whatever place they went to. And that, I think that's very possible in this situation. That's one thing that's really outside of your control, Like, you can't send an SOS to family or anything if you've been drugged and you're really out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So she wasn't returning phone calls. She failed to show up at work, which wasn't like her. And her last Snapchat activity showed she was at the bar where Maxwell Anderson previously worked. And this man was hopping from job to job. He didn't stay at one job very long.
That's not a good sign if they're looking to see if he
Yeah.
is the person who has been making some of these women go missing. Yeah, that is another sign right there, right? So you conduct a crime and you move on. You conduct a crime and you move on. Yeah.
So a bartender at that bar witnessed them there together eating, and they talked to him and said it was their first date. So I mean, clearly she was comfortable with him, and he was like maybe not totally her type, but maybe she was trying something new. Because I know like her mom said it wasn't her type, but I don't know.
Dude, parents don't know what your type is.
Moms don't know that stuff necessarily.
I can only speak on me, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't think my type is so broad. I just don't think any family member of mine would be like, oh yeah, this is his type.
Yeah.
But this whole situation's awful. So it was literally their first date that this happened.
Yep.
Gosh.
I wonder why
it sounds like she did everything right, though. It doesn't sound like she went to his house.
No.
It sounds like they went out in public. So maybe the only better thing that could have happened is letting somebody know, letting him know in front of you that, hey, I am at this place and I will call you when I leave this place to let you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know if she willingly went to his home or not. No, like nobody's who was there can tell us that.
The only other option would be, I mean, she did willingly go because her car was there. 2 cars.
Oh, good point.
So yeah, she willingly went.
Good point. So,
but I still don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, it's completely common to go out on a date with somebody, talk, have a good time, go back to somebody's house. What prevents it is that call. I would have literally been like on the phone, walking into the house and being like, okay, yeah, here's the address. This is where I'm at currently. When I leave, I will call you, talk to you later, you know?
Yeah. So he put her clothes and her phone in the trunk and set it on fire. So why do you think he set it on fire? I feel like that's so obvious and like not very smart in my opinion.
He could be baiting law enforcement, because the second thing I think of, you know, if you're trying to look at this situation through the lens of a sociopath, is why put those 2 things in the trunk? If you're going to light a vehicle on fire to try to hide evidence, then wouldn't you leave that evidence in the most aerated, fiery, likely to burn place?
Yeah, somebody just said they rode together when they left the first place, so they weren't in separate cars.
Oh, so he met her there, and then they rode together, in her car together. Okay. That's strange. This situation sounds awful, though, and it doesn't sound like it was a first.
So when they searched Maxwell Anderson's home on April 4th, they found BLOOD on a bed and walls leading toward a basement, where detectives found multiple containers of gasoline. Then he was arrested the very next day. So one thing that I saw was there was an interview, which they had a voice changer on this young woman. She talked about having a date with Maxwell Anderson in the past, and that she went to his house, and it appeared he was doing some kind of construction.
Okay. In his house? Okay.
And he invited her into the basement. And he said it's pretty scary down there. And she was like, yeah, no, thank you. You know? And she said he seemed like the type of guy who would never finish this construction project. Well, from what we've seen, it appears he had a sex dungeon in the basement, which is what makes me think this is repeatable. Like this is he either has done this before, or he was he was bringing women down there. He was doing this thing and then thinking about doing what he did to Sade and like planning it.
Yeah. What you're getting at
getting
is
comfortable with the idea and planning of it.
Yeah, is the obsession that we classically see in serial killers, where they will fantasize endlessly to the point of it being an obsession before they get to the point where they actually get a victim and conduct this. And we have seen in the past where people have attempted and failed, until they finally get to a point where they've evolved enough that they actually go through with it. So what that dungeon tells me is that the fantasizing was there. Okay. 100% there. So awful, man. That's awful. I hope that
poor Sade, they can't even probably tell how she completely passed away.
People too, that
I hope there isn't more people. Yeah. But so then
I hope it was in these situations. I always feel really weird saying this, but I hope it was quick. There's nothing that we can do to take back the fact that they lost their life. The only thing we can do is hope that it wasn't painful, unfortunately. You know what I mean? So I just hope that it was not a very painful ending.
I hope so too, but unfortunately with these type of people, that's not usually the case. So on April 6th, detectives found a human foot and another piece of what appeared to be like some kind of flesh. And it was a block away from where her car was burnt. And then this says Thursday. I hate when this happens. So I believe it was this past Thursday. They found an arm and a torso on a beach along Lake Michigan. That was about a quarter of a mile from an apartment complex where they believed to have washed ashore. Gosh, it's just, and I can't believe the family's out there searching everywhere because they want to find every piece of her. And it's just, I can't imagine being in their place having to search for parts of your loved one. Like, what a disgusting monster. It's so horrific. So, Maxwell's father has spoken out and released a statement on behalf of their family. And this statement, which again, he's said to have, he's a Nepo baby, Maxwell's a Nepo baby, and his father's supposedly a millionaire, and he had it easy his whole life, all those things. I don't know exactly what's true. I don't know how successful he was. I haven't found a ton on that yet. But they didn't even mention their son in this statement. It says, on behalf of myself and my family, I would like to express our deepest sympathy and heartfelt condolences to the family and loved ones of Miss Robinson. And he added that his family was shocked and devastated by Robinson's senseless death. And getting into his past legal issues, this man has already been doing weird things, and he has even charges for domestic violence on his record. I don't know. I just can't. I'm curious. Do you guys feel like this? So one thing that I guess I could understand why people are comparing him to, gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. The guy he's being compared to. Jeffrey Dahmer. There you go. I don't know how you could forget that. One thing I guess I could see is like Jeffrey Dahmer is always said to have had this like really good upbringing. Like he didn't have trauma like most serial killers, which I think if you've really looked into it, it doesn't really seem like that's 100% true. Like his mother had issues with depression and, you know, trying to OD on, you know, medications and things, which he walked in on. Like that is traumatic for a child. I mean, having any kind of issue, like serial killers always have mommy issues, okay, is what it seems like. And that's what he had. He had issues with his mom, and then his dad was helping him be into all of this, you know, embalming animals and picking up roadkill and doing things with them. So I don't know. I'm saying I guess I could see how his course became what it was, and I could see some of the trauma. You know what's really interesting too is Dahmer's father later admitted to having similar urges as his son, which is really interesting when you think about genetics and how that could have been passed down. So like what were the traumas his father had? Now, looking at Maxwell Anderson, though we don't know a ton about his childhood yet, it is being said he's a Nepo baby and that he's the son of a millionaire. And, you know, he was a high school football star. That sounds like a decent upbringing, doesn't it? It seems kind of, I mean, kind of sort of in line with that same kind of idea that maybe they didn't have really hard upbringings. So then what triggered them to become this horrible monster? What triggered it? What happened? What went wrong in their childhood or their upbringing to make them want to do something like this? Now, one thing that football players get, especially, you know, they say he was a high school star. I don't know how long exactly he played, but I would assume a while. You can get traumatic brain injury, and that is also something that's common in serial enders is brain injuries, head injuries. I don't know. I was just, because people are comparing him to Dahmer somewhat, it was making me think, like, are there any good comparisons to him and Dahmer? And that's one where I could kind of see it, is that their upbringing seem relatively just not, you know, like when you think about other serial killers, some of their upbringings were horrible, or you can see where like that major source of trauma was that turned them. Whereas in Dahmer, it's always been something where people weren't quite sure. They weren't quite sure, like what made him become what he was. So, yeah, we'll get into what we know so far about this man. So, hold on. So, yes, he has domestic violence, disorderly conduct, drunk driving. There's been court records that have suggested concerns about his mental health and substance abuse. And he even worked security at we talked about how he jumped around job to job. So he's had a few different jobs as a bartender and also security at nightclubs and bars, which is interesting. Sounds like good hunting grounds, doesn't it? When you're a bartender or a security guard at nightclubs. Interesting that was his choice, because I did hear that previously his father, again, he who was the millionaire who worked in insurance and it was an insurance broker, actually let him come work with him before, meaning he could have had a really good job making decent money, and basically a free ride into that kind of career and position with his father, but chose, I guess, chose not to move with his father to Florida and stay here and work security and bartend in nightclubs. Again, sounds like great hunting grounds for a serial killer.
Yeah. The one thing that I was thinking about is that these are some pretty big mistakes, though, he made also.
They are.
So,
huge mistakes.
Yeah. So is it a situation where his fantasizing, obsession, desire got to a point that he just couldn't control it anymore? Because that is what happens with serial killers. And he started making mistakes, getting too comfortable, maybe. Or was it a first time? I don't know.
So, this is an account from 2014, a fight in Delafield. So Anderson was visiting his family from Colorado. A relative returned home from work July 2014 and found Anderson acting strangely and sweating profusely. He would not answer his relative's questions. Eventually, Anderson began screaming and throwing things and shut his relative in a room while he tried calling his father on the phone. When a deputy arrived at the home, Anderson stole his relative's car and crashed it into a patio when he returned to the home. He also got into a physical confrontation with another relative. That resulted in the relative breaking multiple ribs. Anderson ended up in the hospital with a broken collarbone. One relative told investigators she believed Anderson was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Anderson was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of disorderly conduct. He pleaded guilty to one in October of that year, and was fined.
Whoa.
So then there's 2015 domestic abuse in Egg Harbor. So he had been staying with some relatives in a basement in Egg Harbor for about 2 months. The relatives told officers they tried talking to him about house rules. He had been coming and going whenever he wanted and wasn't cleaning up after himself. At one point, a relative suggested Anderson seek help for mental health issues, and he reacted violently. He threw a glass, punched a hole in the wall, smashed his relatives' 2 cell phones when they tried calling police. Without a landline, a relative then had to go to a neighbor's house to call the police. The damage Anderson caused was estimated to be over $1,300. He was charged with 4 misdemeanors. He pled guilty to 3 of them, so he got a plea deal, which was criminal damage to property, intimidating a witness, and disorderly conduct, which I guess had an add-on of domestic abuse.
Okay.
He was put on probation for a year.
And this is what I expect to see from people who are doing things like this. You know what I mean? And
it's escalation. It's issues with mental health. It's violent.
Yes. And I try my hardest not to always compare and contrast against Idaho4, but I think this is a really good example why so many people are questioning whether Bryan Kohberger is or could be the guy, because this escalation is what's missing. We see normally when somebody is able to just easily take the lives of somebody else or multiple people, they have a complete and total disregard for laws, for social laws or institutional laws. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's authority in general. So if you don't have that respect and care for authority, then that person has the option to just anarchy, make any decisions they want, whenever they want, however they want, in any way they want. And that's what we see happen, you know? And I think a lot of times in the Idaho4 with Bryan Kohberger, people are like, how is this guy doing that? How did he do this without having anything criminal in his past, without having anything major with mental health? And I understand the addiction
like, is major.
It is. That is a mental health disease, but it's different than that is a cause and reaction for not being able to manage and cope with your trauma and things like that. That's what we see a lot of times in addiction. But there are other mental health disorders that are not, you know, action and reaction of trauma-based experiences in the past. It is something that is completely and totally out of control, like, you know, an inability to control anger or, you know, things of that nature.
Yeah. So in September 2019, he was arguing with a woman on the 2300th block of West Wisconsin Avenue in Milwaukee when somebody tried to intervene, and he attacked the man, and there's a video of him on top of him punching him. He was charged with 2 misdemeanor battery charges and, well, battery and disorderly conduct, which he pled guilty to. And he had a year of probation. He had to do drug screens and pay $7,000 to the victim and 25 hours of community service. And then in 2022, he had a drunk driving incident.
Exactly what I was just talking about. I'm telling you.
His blood alcohol content was 0.145. And he had an open container in the car. So he, I mean, obviously you lose your license and have to pay a fine and then have to do a class and all of that. But yeah, so far that's what we know. While you were gone, I was just talking about the comparison between him and Jeffrey Dahmer, because this is a man, you know, who supposedly had a rich father. Could have had it made and had a career in his father's career because he had allowed him to work with him in the past.
Okay.
He was a high school football star and all that stuff. So like that seems like a relatively decent upbringing. At least you would think. I mean, we don't know a lot.
Yeah, external.
We don't know a lot yet. But Jeffrey Dahmer, that's one serial killer people had a hard time pinpointing what went wrong in his childhood, which I believe it was his mom that went wrong in his childhood, and maybe genetics, because his father said he had similar urges in the but not done them, not carried them out.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking I could see that comparison besides like chopping people up, you know. I could see that comparison, at least with them seeming to have okay upbringings. But I was wondering, since he was in football, did he have a traumatic brain injury?
Oh, yeah. And that's such a great thing to bring up, because that's one of the connections that we have made time and time again, that traumatic brain injuries or TBI have what seem to be a connection to these types of behaviors, or an inability to control your anger or obsessions or things of that nature. Yeah, I great call out. That is a great call out.
Okay, so his father currently lives in a $1.4 million apartment.
Okay.
In Florida.
What is it, like Miami or something?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm really glad that they were able to track her phone and see. I mean, that should help them recover. It did help them recover some of her remains. I'm not sure about, you know, how they're going to do with the rest. I know the cops are saying they're still searching, and obviously the family are. But I mean, that's really where the story ends for now. I saw this being talked about and I thought it was insane and horrifying. So Anderson's currently being held on $5 million bail.
Good.
Thank
Don't let him
God.
out.
Thank God. Which I think that was the big concern in the beginning
Was his dad
well,
paying it?
no, it was the 72-hour hold. And then they had to extend it. Like, what if he had been let out? You know?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm really glad they were able to press charges. Because that was something else. I had never seen something like that before. They must have been pretty sure it was him, but just needed to like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
The prosecutor wanted more. I don't know.
It could be. And looking back on it, look, if they called her in as being missing, okay, Sade, and the police were already looking into it and retracing her last known steps, then they could have already caught him on video. So when they realized, like, hey, we pulled this guy over, whatever, let's just make sure. Let's bring him in. Let's hold him, and you know, it kind of goes from there. So yeah, I don't know, but it's interesting, and it sounds like the police did a phenomenal job here. So shout out to law enforcement on this one, getting this guy off the street. Yeah. I think this is a good story to share. It's important. And especially with police, it's important to give cops shout outs when things are going right and they're doing things that are beneficial to society. And it sounds like they made the right decision with this guy.
It just sounded like this guy was like such a loose cannon. Like, you know, everybody, like, so many people who worked with him said he was childish. He had such a, you know, he'd flip out over any little thing. You know, from the charges, obviously he was kind of a loose cannon. It looked like he just made the most irrational decisions out of nowhere. Which, do you think a person like that makes sense for a calculated serial killer, like the notorious ones that we've all heard of, or no?
I mean, yeah, it could be. It could be. There's a couple different types of serial killers out there, and some of them are more they care less about their social image, but then yeah, you have some where their image in society that they portray, right? Like, why I'm saying it like that is because it is who they are based on who they believe society wants them to be. Like Bundy, for example, that side of his life was also important, getting close to the governor and being a part of politics and wanting to be seen a certain way. And his manipulation style and techniques were so effective. But then, you know, as soon as the lights were out, he was a monster, an absolute monster. So yeah, I think that they can be both. Not everyone has to be so well hidden. Some people could just have a complete and absolute lack of interest and care for authority, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that he should have got a bond, because it does worry me his dad could pay that $5 million bond.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think they should have gave him one.
You just had mentioned how expensive his dad's apartment is, and then you had mentioned right after that he was on a $5 million bond. Okay, well, like, what kind of father is this? The kind that
made him a manager at his company.
Even though he did these things, he would bond him out and give him the chance to run. Is he, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
His dad would be out $5 million though.
Right. You know, something I didn't realize that I actually just saw as I was scrolling through some GoFundMe information for the family. Sade was actually pursuing a career in criminal justice. That's what she was going to school for. I knew she was a college student. I didn't know she was going to school for criminal justice.
Yeah, well, it's really sad. Whatever she was going to school for, it is sad. It's horrible.
It is absolutely. Awful. deplorable. And I really hope they hang him out to dry, man. I hope they can prove, I hope this is a solid case.
Yeah,
No issues, and they get him convicted. It seems like he's
absolutely.
pled guilty or taken a plea deal to just about everything. So I would assume he's going to plead guilty to this, honestly, but maybe not. Maybe he'll try to fight it.
Yeah,
I just think if there was, BLOD all over the walls and everything, and, there's video footage, and I just don't think there'd be a point in fighting it. But, condolences to her family. And I hope that they can find all of her and have a beautiful funeral and find peace, make some kind of purpose or meaning out of this really, really horrible situation. And it
yeah,
sounds like the task force and, there's moves being made to hopefully make a change, make a difference in her name, which is great.
yep, yep. I agree, and just all the positive thoughts to her family. Again, I've never been anywhere close to a situation like this. I've never been involved in a situation like this. But it's probably one of the worst things ever, period.
And
you know,
again,
that you
this
gotta
was
go through, so.
the Sade Robinson case out of
Yeah.
Milwaukee.
And the suspect is believed to be a potential serial killer, and the police are still investigating. So no, I'm glad you brought this up. That's a good one. All right, so we are moving into our next topic tonight, topic number 2. Let's get into some Sebastian Rogers. All right, Sebastian Rogers, 13, right? Yeah, 13.
No, 15.
15. I'm sorry. Sebastian Rogers, 15-year-old, went missing in Tennessee, Sumner County, Tennessee, and has been gone. Are we on day 59, 60?
So he was reported missing February 26th. We're over 50, almost 60.
Yeah, I think it's almost 60. So he's been missing for, close to 60 days or at the 60-day mark. There is a lot of mixed feelings in this case. A lot of the community has been pulled in a lot of different directions. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have came out to help search for him, all the surrounding areas, the land. There's been a lot of fingers pointed at the parents. Okay. He was last seen with his birth mother, and she is married to another man, which would be Sebastian Rogers' stepfather. And a lot of people have a lot of questions and see a lot of red flags with those two and their relationship. Now, his birth father has been out looking for him nonstop, and some people have raised some red flags with him as well. But ultimately, everyone believes that this is a missing persons case, and they aren't sure who could be at fault here, but they want to know. We want to figure it out. We want to be able to find Sebastian Rogers, and everybody is still hoping right now that he will be found well and alive. And there are some crazy updates and developments, and I guess they aren't official developments because we haven't got confirmation that any of this is real yet. But if you want to take it from here.
There was a video put out. Where I first saw it was this video that was put out, and it was from, what is the name of the person again? That channel, Evil Exists, I think.
Okay.
Where they showed messages from a Facebook account where a man was saying he had Sebastian, and Sebastian didn't want to go home, and he was saying like home is broken or something like that. Now, he was asked to provide any kind of proof Sebastian was actually with him. So Pascal Show apparently has talked. He obviously talks to Seth Rogers and has, close-knit ties because he's been talking to him, said he was asked, like, make him call my phone. He knows my number by heart. Make him call my phone if you have him. And he said, no, he's like asleep or something like that. This guy was asking for money for medications. He's just asking for money, basically, and saying he didn't.
Let me try and
he
pull
didn't.
it up. What's
he
the
didn't.
channel?
Evil exists. He didn't want to bring Sebastian Rogers home because Sebastian didn't want to come home.
According to him, yep.
The private investigator for this case actually put a post up saying, and this is Justice Warrior Investigations on Facebook. Everyone, I have received multiple messages from people who are communicating with Marcus Salazar, which is this guy's name on Facebook that was claiming to have Sebastian, about Sebastian Rogers. He is asking for money for Sebastian's meds, but has said that he will not give Sebastian over to anyone except Seth. I do believe this is a scam, but I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that there is nothing to it. I have agreed to meet him in person to return him to his father, and I've promised him the money he is requesting. However, as long as there are others out there communicating with him, he is going to continue to attempt to get money elsewhere. I'm asking that everyone cease communication with him so that we are the only ones left for him to communicate with. If there is anything this, we will do anything and everything we can to get Sebastian back. Thank you, everyone who has sent me the info, but please let us handle it from here on out. Thank you, respectfully, Heather.
Yes, that is insane. And it sounds like it's somebody just trying to go for a money grab to me, right?
Yep.
The only thing that made me feel a little bit strange about it is the fact that he was asking for money for personal items at first, right? I feel like if you're going to go for a money grab, wouldn't you just go right away to like, okay, I'll return him if you give me money, you know? Number two, I felt like I could talk about this without saying that, but yes, it is disgusting. It's insane. It's absolutely wild. And if this, if it's not true and he has not seen Sebastian and not had Sebastian, I personally believe that he should be charged with, I don't know, who knows what they could end up charging him with, impeding an investigation or whatever. But
right.
It's gross, and I'm assuming that since this has gotten out there, most people have looked into this and do not believe that there could be anything to it. So, what do you think?
I don't think that there's anything to it. I just saw Kim in chat say that that Smiley Stories had him on her show. I didn't know that. Smiley Stories had this guy.
Oh.
He called into her show. I didn't know that. I don't know what was said or anything like that. So I wish I could tell you guys, but I don't know.
That is crazy. And
so
even on the show, do we know if he was claiming that he had him?
I just said I have no idea what was said.
Okay.
And Smiley Stories lives are usually really long, so it'd probably be kind of hard to find, but
yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. I just think it's gross. I think it's gross that
I think we would have heard something by now.
Something is going on like that when it's not. I think that if for whatever reason he did find somebody on the side of the road, whether it was Sebastian Rogers or not, and it's a child under the age of 18, why you wouldn't get police involved, I have no idea. But the likelihood of that being understand the statistics that would have to go into play for all that to line up. Like this one man he's the type of man that would pick up a child and not call police. Super improbable. Okay. And then not to mention, he's claiming that Sebastian had talked to him and said home is a bad place. Okay. Likely, very likely, impossible. And then Sebastian is just choosing to stay there with him. I don't know. That just,
yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The more I think about it, the more it doesn't make sense. But that type of interest and a person willing to do that, it feels like there's a problem there.
So not on the show, but she had him on the phone and he didn't know about the medication then. And Smiley asked him, but it seems like his story might be growing. Okay. Thank you, Kim.
Got it.
Thank you, Kim.
I just hope police have gone there.
So yeah, so I was checking for updates from Justice Warrior Investigations on Facebook, because that is one of the current PIs that Seth Rogers has employed in looking for Sebastian.
Sure.
And she updated the post saying that they have contacted law enforcement. I guess people were telling her, like, why are you posting this? You should be telling law enforcement. And she's like, obviously I am. Like, me posting doesn't mean I'm not telling law enforcement, which, yeah. So she said, rather than responding to every comment from people telling me that we should report Marcus Salazar messages to law enforcement, I'll put it here and hopefully everyone will see it. It's already done. We were on the phone with SC, SO, TBI, and FBI first thing this morning. The lead has been thoroughly vetted. Let's move on. Yeah. And
interesting.
That was a day ago, so yesterday, I'm assuming.
I wonder if the guy is mentally ill. I see some people asking in the chat, and I think that's a very fair question to ask, because this seems like such a uncommon thing for a person to do willingly, right? That maybe there is some kind of mental illness going on. However, regardless, the type of person that could take a kid and want to mess and twist and cause issues in an investigation would be the person who would create horrible situations like this too, which is another reason why I still think and hope law enforcement went out there, you know?
Right.
I'm curious to look up and do a little bit of investigating here on him and see if maybe he has any social media, and now that social media has stopped posting, like what is his
he
normal
lives in
social
Oklahoma
media post? Oh,
he lives in Oklahoma. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what I heard, is that he lives in Oklahoma.
So
weird. Yeah, weird. Really weird. But another thing I saw posted actually by the PI is there is a fake GoFundMe that has been created for Sebastian, and it says, let's bring my son home. It had like a $7,000 goal, which it didn't seem like people really had donated yet. So just keep an eye out, you guys, for fake GoFundMes, fake things out there regarding this case, because it appears
verify everything.
It appears it's happening a lot now, where people are trying to get money out of this and creating scams and all kinds of other things, which is just the worst. Like, it's just more noise when we don't need more noise. We need real. We need to focus on Sebastian only. So it's frustrating, but
yeah, that is the downside, unfortunately, of the true crime community getting involved. And you know, we've talked about this quite a bit. We've talked about how the true crime community in general takes the lashings in any case that ends up getting international coverage, right? And I don't think there's any way to stop that. I don't think there's any way that that's going to change. However, I think that the true crime community does a lot of really good things too. So you end up, you know, you give and take a little here. When you include international news and the true crime community that puts in time in their research and reads and investigates and everything else, sometimes that's going to attract the wrong attention also, and that wrong attention will bring people like fraudsters and criminals who are going to try and take advantage of the situation. My one question in this situation is, are some of these things being done intentionally to continue to bring bad attention to this case? You know, so it gets to a point where people get fed up. And what I mean is that we've heard people are claiming they've been threatened in this case and threatened during the search for Sebastian Rogers. Okay, that's a really negative thing to happen when all these people are committing their time, effort, and, you know, time is money, and putting it into finding Sebastian Rogers, to have people come out here and threaten those people. Okay. Then you have really positive things like GoFundMe's and financial support, because Sebastian Rogers' father would like to put all his free time into searching, hunting, and trying to find him. So people are trying to support him financially, because every hour that he's out there searching for Sebastian Rogers, he is not searching, or he is not working and making money. And that's a really positive thing. But then you have the flip side and the negative come out, where you're having fake GoFundMe's because they see the real ones probably doing really good. I don't know what the real one is at. Let me see. Sebastian Rogers GoFundMe, but that unfortunately brings, you know, really crappy people.
It does. So there's also another.
Yeah, look at this. Of course it's going to bring.
Huh? What?
What do you mean what? I just said, look at this. Of course it's going to bring really crappy people.
Because of how much money has been donated?
$24,000 is a substantial amount of money. That's a lot. I mean, people on Social Security and stuff like that, that's like a whole year worth of pay, you know, that's a lot of money. So I think when you see fraudsters and people that don't have a conscience coming out here, and they're going to add their criminal mix to it, like, I understand it, but unfortunately for them, there are people out there, and people, and I'm not trying to pat my own back here, but people like us who want to share knowledge of technology and how to verify things and how to stay up to date on making sure you're managing your technology the right way and in a healthy way, to make sure that, you know, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's. So in situations like this, I just suggest that you verify everything. The rule of thumb is, don't download any apps that don't have 4-star rating and at least 1,000 reviews. If you're going to give and support money, I would look for the overall quantity of donations and quantity of money. And you can also verify its legitimacy based on the website that is supporting it, you know?
Yep.
So,
okay. So one other major update is Seth Rogers. I just sent you this link. There is a curse word in it.
Okay.
Where Seth cusses, but he makes a statement.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, important. It is important to spread it out there. So we're going to watch it real quick. It was originally posted on Justin on TikTok's channel, which we've shouted him out a couple times for his interview with Seth Rogers in the past. But it was shared on Facebook. So we're going to play it from here. It seems like the easiest place to watch it.
All right. Here, let me mute our mic.
Me and Chris are putting our differences aside. We have one more. It's not about our egos. It's about finding Sebastian. Me, Chris, and Katie will begin working together. And if everybody else could just fuck off and put your egos aside, help us find our son. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers is the goal of this shit. If you can't, me and Chris are putting our differences aside.
So he
Okay.
said him and Chris are putting their differences aside, and the three parents are going to begin working together to find Sebastian.
Okay. I mean, listen, I don't ever base my opinions off of other people, including victims' family members. Unfortunately, do I feel bad that they have to deal with these horrible, awful, uncommon, once in a lifetime situations? Absolutely. It makes me wish I could carry some of that load of stress for them in these situations. However, red flags are red flags regardless of who's talking to who's helping who's partnered, who's going to throw their egos aside. Listen, there are red flags with the mother and the stepfather, regardless of if the birth father feels like they're putting their egos aside and they're going to work together. That doesn't change the objectively obvious red flags here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't know the more precise location for Mike Salazar, the guy who was claiming to have Sebastian. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I just know that he was in the Oklahoma area. If I find out he's from a certain town, I guess I could let you know. But anyway, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not going to judge anybody. I think, you know, it could be beneficial, I guess. It was interesting because I saw some messages today on Twitter where somebody was trying to get some kind of information or something, and they were responded to with, it's a criminal investigation. And
okay. Yeah. Yep.
it's a criminal investigation, and you know, we can't release that right now.
From law enforcement. The response was from law enforcement that it is a criminal investigation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the Uvalde Foundation, we read that yesterday where they talked about this becoming a criminal investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So it just made me, I don't know, I was kind of thinking like maybe behind the scenes they're on to something and it is moving towards a criminal investigation. But I don't know, like with all the parents, like why, I don't know, like there doesn't need to be separation necessarily, but what does he mean they're going to be working together? Like what all does that entail? How does that change anything?
Well, I don't know, but they have been conducting some back and forth behaviors where you know, Sebastian Rogers' birth father will take stabs and talk about their past or whatever, which are very obvious red flags. And I personally believe he should have done that. I think, unfortunately, everything needs to be laid out on the table when you have a missing child. Okay, that it just is what it is. Like everything needs to be dissected. Everything needs to be laid out. Everything needs to be visible so that people can connect dots where they can. But then the birth mother and stepfather had been coming out and taking jabs at him too. So it's been pretty subjective, pretty drama filled, a lot of gossipy information going back and forth. I understand that. It doesn't change the fact that there are some very weird, objectionably questionable red flags in this case.
I agree.
So what do you think it could mean?
I don't,
just that they're going to communicate more and
I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, they're trying to communicate more. They're putting their heads together, or maybe putting funds together like funding continuing to surge, printing flyers,
Ew,
just
that would be so shady if it was about the money.
combining resources. I don't know. I mean, it's odd that, I mean, I don't know. I think when a child disappears, any little issue between the parents, like, it's going to be exacerbated. You know what I mean? If there was any hard feelings,
they did work together in the beginning.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
If there was any hard feelings before the child went missing, those are going to be 10 times worse now that the child's missing. And they were working together in the very beginning, and then something happened and Seth literally got cut off. They quit talking to him.
Yeah.
And then took off in their camper. And then Katie's back home now.
Okay.
But Chris
about
isn't.
time.
Chris isn't. He's working. Still, I guess.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, listen, people have to provide for themselves. That's not a red flag. The working, in my opinion, is not a red flag at all. But them leaving their home from where the story is currently that Sebastian left from, and the one home that he knows of and could return to, that has always felt very strange to me. And I think that would be a red flag that anybody would want to look into further. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting, you guys, is the law enforcement's response to questions and public information requests with, we can't give out any information because this is an active criminal investigation. And for those people that don't know, so public records, as long as there's not a criminal investigation going on, like, they have to give them to people when they submit those requests, unless it could impact the investigation and or trial, or case. So them responding saying we can't help you because this is an active criminal investigation, I would assume only means that they had to have transitioned over to a criminal investigation. Had to.
Yeah.
That's the only way they can deny a public records request.
So you know what I was thinking about? So Steve Fisher on Twitter, he posted, did anybody know what size Sebastian wore as a shoe? Like, what size shoe did he wear? And what size Chris Proudfoot wears as a shoe? And asked the question of, could Sebastian have taken Chris Proudfoot's, like, some old work boots or something and wore them? So basically what I know of Sebastian
that would be
shoes,
strange.
what I know of Sebastian's shoes is that it was said he had just outgrown a bunch of his shoes, and his mom gets rid of old shoes when they don't fit anymore, and that Seth had just bought him a new pair of boots. So say he had like 2-3 new pairs of shoes, and that's all he had because he outgrew the rest. Well, what if he did plan on leaving that night? You remember my theory about him walking around like at night, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, he got into a hat, because we know he didn't sleep well at night. We know he got up and snacked. He was becoming a rebellious teenager. You know, he had trauma and issues. So was he going and walking around at night? Wandering around at night? Is it possible? And his mom didn't know because she wasn't checking on him. Is that why we heard the loud thump in his room? Was he getting ready to, like, sneak out, you know?
And wearing old work boots or something?
Well, apparently, Sebastian, there's a part in here where it's actually originally posted by Coffin Daffer. She caught them asking about a shoe size, and they say it's a size 10. They describe a size 10 print or something like that.
Okay.
It's possible that he wore a 10 and that Chris Proudfoot also wore a 10. It's possible.
Yeah, it is
And
possible,
even if
but,
they
like,
were a bit big, say Chris Proudfoot wore a size 11 or a size 10 and Sebastian wore a slightly smaller shoe, he could have wore a slightly bigger shoe, and maybe he didn't want to get his new shoes dirty because then his mom would know that Sebastian was sneaking out at night.
I don't know. I see the question. I see the point that we're gathering to here. However, I whenever I'm talking about any situation, I'm using my own personal experience, right? I know every single pair of shoes that I have, all of them. And I have a lot of shoes between my 50 million dress shoes and nicer dress shoes, my work boots, between my athletic shoes. I know them all. I know the shoes that I keep that are work shoes and
Okay, what's your
older. I know
point?
everything. My point is that wouldn't they have said that to the police? Unless there's something shady going on.
Like
They
if
would
Chris,
be able to know if they took a pair of his shoes.
But Chris was like hardly living at the home. He had been gone for a month on a work trip. Like he was working out of his camper. Maybe he doesn't even realize those shoes are gone.
That's all I'm saying right there is that question about realizing if the shoes are gone or not. I would.
You would realize.
Absolutely. So that's impossible for me to be in that situation because I would know.
Yeah, I'm curious. Would you guys remember, like, notice a pair of your shoes, like old shoes, like that are junky old shoes that you don't even pay attention to anymore, really? Would you notice those are gone?
I pay attention to all my shoes.
If my child was missing and it appears they left barefooted and you've gone through all of this, you're this far into it, I think I would have noticed by now if a pair of my shoes were missing too. But
I would 100%, not even a maybe. I absolutely would know. Absolutely. But if I'm being fair here, you guys, like I love shoes. I love athletic Nikes. I have a whole bunch, and I have a whole bunch of dress shoes, in my banker suit type job where I got to wear a tie and everything. I have a ton. I also have work boots and stuff like that. I just know that I would know that it is impossible for me to insert myself in that case and have somebody wear a pair of my shoes and leave. I would know.
I wonder, that's a good point. He probably wanted his old shoes. She threw them away to avoid the fight. I could see that as possible with with an autistic boy, him liking his old shoes because they were comfy and they fit the way he liked. And they might be getting a bit too small, but he still wants to wear them. What if because he's the one who took out the trash. What if he kept an old pair and was hiding it from his mom?
I don't know.
I was also thinking about Chris Proudfoot shoes. Like, what if he wore an old pair of his shoes? Because would that mess up the scent trail if they were not Sebastian's own shoes?
Not based on how science works. Okay, would you notice an old pair of shoes missing? Start poll. There you guys go. Let us know if you would notice it or not. But I don't know. The one thing I'm worried about in this situation, in any situation, is the fact that it feels like we have to jump through mental gymnastics and creating situations that could maybe possibly kind of sometimes align.
I see.
So you know what I mean? Now we're going to could Sebastian of took his stepfather's shoes because he was trying not to do this, that would be very uncommon. And
But nothing makes sense.
He would still leave a trail, because I think that the trail is based off of our DNA shedding and things like that. So yeah, I think so. But could I be wrong? Yeah, I mean, I could be, for sure. I don't know everything, and I have no idea if that would confuse a dog. Would a dog wonder if would a dog get mixed up if one person is wearing somebody else's shoes, so there's a mixed scent? I don't know. I have no idea.
So yeah, I don't know. That's really all I have for the moment with Sebastian Rogers. Unfortunately, I wish there was more. So far, what does the poll say about people noticing their shoes missing?
We are split down the middle currently. Would you notice an old pair of shoes missing? Currently, we have 42% saying yes, 42% saying no, 15% saying maybe. It could just be down to like personal preference on how much your shoes are important to you, I guess. Maybe. I don't really know. You know what I mean? I love shoes, you guys. I love them. There are people out there that don't see a lot of worth in shoes, and they're okay just dropping, 30, 40, 50 bucks and getting new shoes. Well, I'm the person where I want to take care of my shoes and get really expensive shoes, so I have some dress shoes that I will have my entire life, and they have lifetime warranties on them, and they are 100% American made and handcrafted and things like that.
Normal people things.
That's my point. That's why I'm sharing that bit of information, because I don't think that's a normal thing.
Yeah, not for Chris Proudfoot. I doubt it.
So understanding that my obsession in things like that, those little details might make my opinion on whether I would notice that or not null and void in this situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I know that Tara, who's usually in the chat here, she tagged us on Twitter and asked if we had seen this news broadcast from the first 24 hours of Sebastian being missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the news reporter said he was last seen leaving his front door, walking out of his front door. That they use that language. I mean, there's nothing is corroborating that we have seen. Apparently, there's zero video footage of him leaving the home. There's zero video footage of anything after they left the restaurant that night.
Yeah. All of our YouTube people, I have no idea how many people we currently have on YouTube right now. Okay, so 233. So anybody watching, because we have a couple thousand, but if you want to vote on this poll is on YouTube, you guys. I should have said that in the beginning. So on YouTube, where the main chatters are when we're live like this, it's on there. And anybody on any of the other platforms, you can find us on youtube.com and search Thought Riot Podcast, and we have an active and fluent chat in here. So but yeah, currently it looks like we got like 40% saying yes, 44% saying no, and 16% maybe. Yeah, I truly believe that a lot of people wouldn't notice, but I do think some might.
Yeah.
I really do. I would have such a hard time in a situation like this, you guys, because I'm a firm believer that there is always evidence in everything we do, just like a computer. You can't make a click. You can't make a swipe of a mouse. You can't make a save. You can't make an email. You can't do anything on a computer. And by computer, I mean phones and tablets too, without that leaving evidence and leaving a trace. Okay. I feel like life is very similar. It's just are we looking in the right areas and in the right way to find said evidence that has been left over? You know, I don't think that we should stop looking for Sebastian. I don't think that we should clear an area and not come back to it. If they believe he left that home, then gosh, I hope that they do a triple, quadruple, 10 times over search of that area again and again and again and again, okay, with different dogs and at different times. You know?
Yeah. And I didn't know this. I don't know who Clyde is. I don't know what show that is, but a guy, he stated yesterday that info on Sebastian leaving the front door was coming, and that the neighbors saw him go to the front door and then into the garage that Sunday evening.
What? And
So
we're just hearing about this 2 months later?
I don't know, man. So one thing that I saw that was interesting. So one time on the Pascal show, and Pascal mentioned this today, that basically Seth this whole time had been watching all these shows, just waiting for somebody to ask the right question that would like trigger him so that he could go tip that off to the cops or use it as a lead. So he was using these chats and what people were saying to generate ideas for what he was going to do next, which is pretty smart. So somebody asked, you know, have the Proudfoots produced the clothes that he was wearing in that video of him at the restaurant that night? Because if they can produce those clothes, that means he did in fact make it home that night, and we can cancel out that theory of something happened, you know what I mean, at that time, and he was wearing those clothes. Well, Seth literally texted the TBI right then and there while he was on the show with Pascal. And Pascal mentioned, well, we haven't gotten any updates on that. TBI has never even told Seth if they looked into it or not. Well, we just saw Seth made a statement today that he's going to be working with the Proudfoots. So I wonder if they did produce those clothes, if he asked them, and that opened up them being able to talk. And they did say, yeah, I have the clothes that he was wearing. And Seth began to be like, okay. And they both started realizing like we need to work together or something. I wonder if that reconnected them.
I don't know, maybe.
Or maybe they were cleared enough. Maybe Chris Proudfoot, what he told Gray Hughes is correct, and he did pass his polygraph with the TBI. And that made Seth trust him a little more. Because I've noticed a change. Do you remember me saying this yesterday? There's a change in Seth. He's not out here talking like he was. He's quieter. He's more reserved. What's going on? Why is he not all over the place like he was? Is something coming? And I thought it might be a criminal investigation, but now it kind of seems like the families are reuniting in their search for Sebastian, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it could be a great thing.
Yeah, my shoe. I agree with you.
Best case scenario is Sebastian did wander off, that he did run away, and that they find him somewhere. He's holed up somewhere.
I hope that is the case.
I hope they find him.
I hope that's the case. And just to clarify what I was talking about, you guys, like Yeezys are not the warranties on my shoes. When I'm talking about my shoes with warranties, they are dress shoes with leather soles, leather uppers. My preference is wingtips, and they are from cows that are like handled a certain way, and then it is all done man-made from step 1 to step 100, and I'm obsessed with them. And they will last for multiple lives, you guys. These are my dress shoes I'm talking about.
All
but
leather.
They're awesome. They aren't Danner boots. Nope.
Yeah, he's been in chats here and there, but he is not. I
have Yeezys. I'm not shooting them down, you guys. I do have them. I have Yeezys.
Yeah,
I have.
he loves sneakers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have
he's
sneakers too,
yeah.
but the warranty ones are the most expensive shoes I have are either the All American Pampered Cow handcrafted shoes or the Italian boots.
You just love being a shoe snob, don't you?
I just like shoes, and I feel like I can feel a difference because really, really nice boots or wingtips take forever to break in. Literally, my feet will like be bleeding for a couple months, but once they break in,
oh, that sounds terrible.
it is form fitted to my foot, and it is incredible. And they'll last an entire life. So one person will buy a pair of dress shoes for $100 every year, you know, and then or even more than that. Well, my dress shoes, I just spend, you know, $1,000 and they're life. That's it. They're with me for life. I think it's a pretty good deal. I really do.
I mean, when you put it that way, I guess it is a pretty good deal, I guess, but.
All right. So would you notice an old pair of shoes missing?
End the poll and it'll post it in the chat.
1%. I was going to give people a little bit more time to.
They've had quite a bit of time.
Okay. If you say so. All right. 41% for would you notice an old pair of shoes missing, and 39%. Well, 41 say yes, 39% say no, and 20% say maybe. Bam. There we go. Interesting. Our thought writers.
It's closer than I thought it would be. But I mean, I get it. Yeah, I get why it is that way.
Stay in style forever. Forever. And yes, they are a Fed shoe.
They're a Fed shoe?
Yes. Wingtips at one time were required by the FBI.
Oh, okay. Okay, so getting into Bryan Kohberger alibi.
Okay.
Now, one thing I just want to say, Bryan Kohberger's alibi is not that he was looking at the moon and stars.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that real quick before we dive into it, because there were quite a few people that had commented and were like, hey, I really appreciate that you guys weren't putting down him for liking that he was looking at the stars and the sky. I'm telling you, I knew the fact that people are making fun of that is going to offend people. What is wrong with looking at an amazing sky and stars and the moon? Like, what do you mean? That's one of the most humanistic pastimes ever. Now we just have to deal with light pollution. So what does that make that why does it make that lame looking at the stars in the sky?
Dude, there
you know
was
what I mean?
Nothing lame about the universe.
So
the universe is actually
I'm glad a lot of people felt that way.
Terrifying. The universe scares me.
Yeah.
When I look at the moon and stars, it's like existential dread.
Yeah. I'm just glad a lot of people feel the same.
But yeah, it's cool. It's all cool and stuff. Like, because space is cool.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. But because I don't think there's anything weird about it. I just don't. There's nothing strange about it. So why you have all these people coming on here and like knocking it, it doesn't make sense. It makes them look foolish, in my opinion. Like, I
agree.
He's so nerdy. What a nerdy dummy, liking, to learn and the stars and the universe and math and tech stuff. Like, what? Or shouldn't we be talking about why he's a criminal? Yeah,
I don't.
Or not.
But that again, it is dumb that people put it down, because it's like, oh, he was looking at the moon and stars. Like, so what? Why are you focusing on that? Why are you just trying to pick fun? Let's be real. Let's be serious, because there's nothing wrong with looking at the moon and stars. So, but that again, that is not his alibi. His alibi is not that he was star watching that night.
Yeah.
It's just, that's not what it is. It's that he was in the opposite direction of the crime scene with evidence backing it. That's his alibi. Is that he has scientific data backing he was in the opposite direction as the crime scene. Now, Vinnie Politan, like I said earlier at the beginning, he did a show. He has his own show now that is completely separate from Court TV that he does on his YouTube channel. And I like Vinnie.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Real quick, before we move on from this, do you think that they realize? Thank you for calling that out. I see multiple people saying that, and I actually meant to bring that up. So did you know there's a very specific meteor shower that was going on during that night? So maybe it is a way to deflect the interest of the stars and moon by making people think like they shouldn't look into that, or ha ha ha, so funny and lame. And it's really them trying to deflect interest from looking into what was going on in the sky at that time, because I see a couple people saying that, and thank you for sharing that. You guys
forgot. Yes,
the meteor shower.
I totally forgot about that.
Which could place him.
So right, that could place him.
Yeah. So
what do you mean?
If you have enough in a picture taken, okay, so let's say he took a picture of himself, right, with the sky as the background. If there's enough in the picture to place the degree of angle he's at and where the stars are and everything, you can literally like locate somewhat where somebody is. And at the time they're there, based on what is going on in the sky, because we record the sky at all times.
Right.
You guys know that, right?
We do.
We are always recording the sky, always. So if he's taking a picture of the sky at a certain time and they're able to place the phone in that area at that time through background application data or something else, then voila. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I'm seeing there was Omicron Arendanids OER November 13th. Wait, is that the time? Is that the time?
But yeah,
I think that might be the time.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting. I think that
local standard time is right here. So it would have been early in the morning. It would have been early in the morning that you had to see it.
Yeah. That's
November 13th.
What we're talking about. Yeah.
So I was trying to find proof of it. I'm not just going to take that, like, I'm going to look it up, but I did hear that. I saw somebody commented the other night that there was an important meteor that was passing that day.
Meteor shower is what people have said. So yeah, no, I think that's interesting. So it just goes back to the social aspects of the situation. Does the prosecution and the state realize that they have good evidence here? Because in my opinion, based off the defense coming forward with solid information, they are usually planning and rebutting or deflecting the response of that information in their investigation. So, is this a way to make people not want to go looking at what was going on in the sky at that time? I don't know. But it could be a good plan on their part. But what were you saying?
Nothing. I just thought it was interesting that, I guess it's true. But I don't know. It was still cloudy that night. So Do you think that he was driving a certain direction to try to beat the clouds to go see it, maybe?
Oh, I don't know. I just think that it's possible that that could be a piece of evidence.
Yeah, it is possible. So do you want to play any of the clips from Vinny saying, or do you just want me to try?
No, just talk about it.
Okay, just talk
it's
about
the
it.
talk show.
Okay, so basically in this, Vinny talks about the alibi being alibis are about innocence, essentially.
Okay.
And that an alibi is based upon his alibi is based upon evidence that is being given to the defense from the state, which makes it not an alibi at all. That if in order to have an alibi, you have to wait for the discovery, then it's not an alibi.
Vinny's saying this. He has a legal background.
He's
What?
a prosecutor. He was a prosecutor.
Yeah, I know. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I have a ton of respect for Vinny. I love his show and normally what he talks about, but I gotta be honest, that's just ridiculous, dude. Everybody knows that they're doing an alibi based defense here. Okay, so in order to have an alibi based defense, you got to be able to support your alibi, and the whole point of an investigation is for investigators to gather evidence. So clearly you're going to use some of that evidence. That's the whole point in discovery. So I'm a little shocked that he would say that. Honestly, I'm a little shocked at that because you can't prosecute or defend without sharing the evidence, aka, the whatever the word is in court. Having an ADHD moment. But sharing the evidence back and forth. Discovery, yeah.
So here's my question. Like that I was thinking, so shouldn't Kohberger already know where he was? Yes, of course. He should already know where he was. But here is like the problem. Like, so why did he wait to give his alibi? Why did he wait? Or did he wait? Do we even know that he waited technically?
Well,
like,
this isn't considered his alibi, just to be clear. He's already given his alibi.
Right. So he was interviewed over the phone by Moscow investigators, and there was a formal sit-down interview that was recorded with the FBI. How do we know this is the first time he's given his alibi?
Wait, I think those things are flipped. I'm pretty sure the FBI was over the phone and that's what's recorded, and Moscow's in person is not. Are you sure?
I'm pretty positive, but you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty positive. No. FBI was formal sit-down, recorded the way it should be. Payne or somebody called him over the phone and didn't record it. So,
but why would you call him over the phone when you're in that area? That's why that just doesn't sound right.
Huh?
They're from that area.
He wasn't in that area. He was in Pennsylvania, I think, when they called him.
Okay, we'll look into it for sure. I can't confirm one way or the other, but I'm pretty sure it's flipped.
No, I don't believe so. So anyway, you heard it was flipped. Okay. Well, I don't know. I could be wrong. Of course. I don't think it really matters right now. But the point is he had interviews.
It is important for me. And the only reason why I know that bit of information is because we've talked on this before. And I used that as an example to prove why the investigators in that area were incompetent. Because how on earth could you do an in-person interview and not record?
Right.
But over the phone, that makes more sense, right? Something could have malfunctioned, whatever, over the phone. So you have the FBI who does the that does the harder recording over the phone of the interview. But then you have Moscow who did it in person and did not. Like, that's a huge fail. That's why I've just used that as evidence before when I was saying why this investigation is hard to believe everything at face value.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I know it matters. I believe it matters. I'm just saying it doesn't matter for like the specific thing we're talking about right now. The point is he was interviewed. So how do we know this is the first time he said I was out driving around that night?
Yeah, I think that's a great
technically, That is his alibi. Is that, listen, so do you remember the clip we listened to that Nancy Grace played last night where Bill Thompson said, well, we already knew that. Did he mean we already knew that because of what was written in the PCA? Or did they already know that because Bryan Kohberger had already told them he was out driving around that night? They just didn't have the specifics.
Well, but they had the car already before he was arrested.
What's your point?
That I would assume that they would have made the connection that he was out driving around once they had the car on video and connected it to Bryan Kohberger before interviewing him. So they would have already had that knowledge before him saying he was out driving around.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, like, yeah, that's in their own PCA that he was out driving around that night, and saying that none of that on their footage is him, though. That he wasn't over there in Moscow driving around. He was over west of Moscow
In the alibi.
in that park area driving around.
Yeah, in the alibi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying, like, did he say we already knew that because of what they already believe about him driving around and doing the crime? Or did they say that because he'd already said he'd been driving around? He'd already given his alibi in his interviews. Like, we don't know. The point is the case is sealed. We have not heard his interviews. We have not heard any evidence. We don't know that he's been holding out his alibi this whole time and never told investigators that he was out driving around that night. Because that is his alibi.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just not as detailed as they wanted it to be.
Yeah. I think so. I think, yeah. Yep.
They want to be able to invest. So the whole point of this, which Vinny also explained in his video, is that
I don't believe they did.
They want his alibi, that Idaho requires this alibi be given in this formal manner and this whole 10-day deadline and all of that, so that the prosecution can investigate the alibi. That is literally the purpose of it, so that it's not a trial by ambush.
Right.
So that, they can be prepared to, like, deal with his alibi, prove that he was guilty, all of that.
Yeah. I was just trying to understand where you were going with that, because I feel like we already know that bit of information. So I was trying to figure out, like, how that supports or hurts the alibi, because in my opinion, it doesn't. And to me, that just sounds like a deflection topic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So that's what's been brought up quite a bit, though. Like, Vinny's not the only person that has said that. And I'm going off talking points. Many people who are making fun of this alibi, many people who are saying it is absurd and it's not an alibi at all. I'm taking their talking points and I'm asking questions about them.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Like,
I just didn't understand.
People are saying, why would he wait? Even the Gonsalves family, in their family statement, they said, why did he wait all this time to give his alibi?
Oh, dude.
We don't even know that he waited all this time, for one, because he could have given his alibi in the formal interview. And you guys, they didn't even give him the chance to give an alibi before his arrest. They didn't do an interview with him prior to his arrest where they could say, hey, Bryan, where were you that night? They didn't do that. So his only chance of giving the alibi is post-arrest, when he's already in cuffs and accused and being extradited to Idaho. And if he is innocent, how much do you think he's going to trust the cops, for one? And Taylor was already his attorney before he even landed in his plane. And I'm sure she consulted with him literally on his arrival. And there was a formal sit-down interview. How do we know he didn't say, I was out driving that night?
Yeah.
And gave his interview, his alibi, I mean.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. So, look, and we've brought this up a whole bunch of times. I personally don't see it being beneficial by looking at the angle of well, maybe he actually did give his alibi. No, I don't want to play. I don't want to buy into that idea. Okay. I want to take every single person's idea that has said, well, if he's single or not single, if he's innocent, he would be on the rooftop shouting his innocence. Okay. Ball all those ideas up and throw them out the window, man. Put them in the trash. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, okay? So Bryan's concern needs to be Bryan. If he didn't commit this crime, do you really think he's going to be like, what answer is the most socially correct answer to give for the victims' families? No, he's human. He's going to be like, what do I need to do to get the heck out of here with my knowledge and understanding of the justice system? And the thing that you do, if you're worried, if he is innocent and he sees this evidence in the PCA, I don't know if I would just openly come out and give all my information. I don't know that I would do that, because that is the opposite of helping himself.
I agree with you.
And to expect that he needs to come out and shout on the rooftops that this is where I was, so I'm not guilty. Like, come on. That is insane. Absolutely insane. Okay. Somebody cannot act guilty. You can't act guilty and you cannot act innocent.
Dude, the way
those don't exist.
The way Chris Watts acted when he gave his interview on TV, I disagree with you. I think the entire world knew that man was guilty. I did.
So that's not acting guilty, though.
He totally was acting guilty.
No, you're reading body language and micro expression of discomfort. That doesn't mean he's acting guilty. That is our social perception, reading that body language and those things. And because of how we've been trained and look at these situations, we've determined he's guilty from that. But there is not an acting guilty. It doesn't exist.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. It's just Chris Watts was acting uncomfortable during all the worst parts. And the language he was using when talking, like he wouldn't say any of their names. Like, it was really weird. It was really off. And almost everybody who watched that interview, everybody was shouting from the rooftops, that man is guilty. He killed his family.
I agree with you there. And I also think that when you watch the video of him watching the recording with the officer there and his neighbor, he is acting guilty. Yeah. But when we break it down objectively, right? Because there's a lot of things out there in the world that have two definitions. You have the social definition, and then you have like the objective, the dictionary type definition. This is one of those things. You can't literally act guilty. So it's really important to reel ourselves back into these situations and realize, okay, I feel like he's acting guilty, so I need to define what I'm seeing that is making me feel like he's acting guilty. What is it? And are those things I'm seeing connected or can be connected to how somebody that did this crime would act?
Well, and
how
has Kohberger ever even been given the chance other than when asked to plea, his innocence or guilt? That is the only chance he's been given to say what he is. That's the only one. And clearly there's a legal reason he chose to stand silent.
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people like to act like, he wouldn't even say he was innocent.
Yeah.
If I was innocent, I would say I'm innocent. There's a legal reason he chose to stand silent.
We're at 3,333. 3333.
Oh, wow. Fun.
Okay. But anyways, rant done. What do we got?
Thank you. So he went into the whole thing that, the alibi witness is an expert witness, not an eyewitness. And I'm not even going to get into that anymore because it's ridiculous. And I think it's absurd. An expert witness for your alibi is so much better, astronomically better than an eyewitness for your alibi. And Nancy Grace said a very similar thing. It's like, everybody knows he's not going to have a witness. There's not going to be a witness there that said they were there with him. Of course not. Well, who cares? Who cares? I wouldn't even trust them if they did. I don't trust any witnesses. I don't trust Dylan when she gets up there because and it's not because I think she's distrustful or deceitful. It's because I don't trust people's memories. Human memory is not great. And especially so much time has passed, you don't know what details they're remembering because they saw it on TV or not.
Yeah.
Dylan could have literally made up in her mind that the suspect looks like Bryan Kohberger at this point, when that's not who she saw at all, and really believe it's Kohberger.
Yeah.
And because she's being told it's him. And it's not even her fault.
Yeah,
it's just faulty human memory.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the thing that we all deal with, every single one of us. And that's, again, another reason why we try very hard on this channel to keep things so scientific and to keep things so objective here, that we are aware of the human aspects of us that work against ourselves. And our memory is one of them. Our memory is absolutely one of them. Human memory is flawed all the way around. It is the most unreliable thing. And every time you recant a memory, you're rewriting it over again. You're resaving it with a little bit of a difference and a little bit of a difference and a little bit of a difference. That's how PTSD snowballs and gets worse. That's how great memories continue to grow and get better. It is the most unreliable thing ever because it's not repeatable and or provable. We honestly need to throw eyewitnesses out of cases. I don't think they should happen at all, period. I think there can be expert testimony based on the scientists, based on the science that we see at hand. I don't think any eyewitnesses are reliable. I just don't.
I mean, and it's also hard because jurors believe them so much. Like,
yeah, because the human connection.
Connection is, there's something to be said about it. And they really trust when a person says they saw something when they should not trust it. It should be literally a drop in the bucket compared to all the rest of the evidence. And I just saw somebody call out the astronomically, like, seriously, you just said astronomically.
Who did?
And I was waiting for somebody to do that. It was funny.
What?
Astrology? Because I chose to use the word astronomically better.
Oh.
When his alibi stargazing.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. So the another statement that Vinny made was the expert, if you read the alibi, okay, he says the expert has already made up his mind, at least from what they're saying in the document, has already made up his mind without seeing the evidence. And he said, how can that be?
Wait, who's already made up his mind without seeing the evidence? Bryan?
So do you know how at the end
Kohberger has already made up his mind?
The witness, the expert witness.
Okay.
So do you know at the end where they say, like, what does it say again? The part where they're saying if they're not supplied with certain things, then it will, critical exculpatory evidence will have been either not preserved or withheld from the defense.
Okay.
So Vinny took that as meaning the expert has not seen the information that he needs to see to even be backing up this alibi with the data, but has already made up his mind that the alibi is real. That's what Vinny was saying.
What, Vinny? Why are you doing me so dirty on this one? I'm just like argument after argument. I'm gonna have to watch that video because that's another
why
thing
I wanted to play a couple clips, but it's okay.
That just doesn't make sense at all right now. What the expert doesn't need to believe anything, and this is a good point for us to say what we say every time we're talking about the Idaho4 case. Look, I have no idea if Bryan Kohberger is innocent. I have no idea if he's guilty. Look, could they prove that he was in that area between 3 and 4 and 5 a.m.? Yeah. Could he have done the crime earlier and maybe their timeline is wrong and he was in the park getting rid of a weapon or something like that? Yes, any of these things are possible. Any of them are possible, okay? But to like devalue an expert testimony based on science is ridiculous, because for us, not knowing if Bryan Kohberger is innocent or guilty, we can continue to investigate this investigation and have opinions on singular or micro pieces of information in this case, in the same way this expert can do it too. Because this expert is a defense expert, and he's coming in and he is giving his expert testimony based on the objective evidence at hand, he does not have to believe Bryan Kohberger is innocent or guilty to do that.
No, he doesn't. So with the cast report not being done yet, how do you think this expert is getting to a different conclusion than the experts from like the PCA, from the state, from the prosecution? How is the prosecution's experts getting to that he drove around Moscow and made these loops and then stopped at the crime scene, did the deed, and then drove down that big loop, and then also that he was there 12 times before, and that, which obviously, you guys, that time of the crime, his phone was off, so there is no cell data during that time. So
we don't
the
know
cell data.
We don't know it was off.
What? Okay. Good.
It wasn't communicating with the network.
It wasn't communicating with the network. So we don't know what happened during that time with the phone. There is no cell data or anything like that. So how did the experts get to all the other, he was there 12 times?
They didn't. That's the point.
That's the point.
Investigators did this, and investigators don't have expert knowledge in networks and cellular-based technology. So yeah, I think that if you have experts come in and look at this data and any other data that they can get, I think that it is going to create a more believable and realistic outcome of this evidence.
But Vinny also brings up a good point. There's parts in the PCA where they line up the pings with video footage, but that's only in the Clarkson-Lewiston area, Vinny, which is why that's not a good comparison. Because when we're talking Moscow-Pullman area, the service is horrible.
Yeah.
It is nothing comparable to the Clarkson-Lewiston area. Just look at a cell tower map, and you can see the clear difference between those two areas. So yeah, I get, and I'm sure that's why they included it in the PCA, to show that they could line up video footage with cell tower data and where he was, but it's in a totally different town, so it doesn't matter. That's the only time. I can't think of, is there anywhere else in the PCA where it shows them lining up video footage to cell tower pings in Moscow, Pullman?
Yeah, we don't.
That's not in the PCA.
No, it's not.
It is not.
No, but what's interesting is in the in this most recent hearing, in the alibi, whatever, they brought up a couple different places where that happened. One of them being the gas station right down the street or whatever, where they claim they have the white Hyundai Elantra on video or a picture. And then they say that at the pot store, they have a white Hyundai Elantra going through the Pullman-Moscow road that connects the two during a certain time.
Right.
And the defense is saying that that is not Bryan Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra. And what's interesting is we've covered multiple different pieces of evidence where we've dug in and proved that there were at least 2 non-police related white 4-door sedans and 2, so we've determined there were 2 4-door Hyundai Elantras that look almost identical to Bryan Kohberger's car in that area that night and active around those times. We have no idea how many mistakeably close 4-door white sedans
like
were in that area during that time. So I think,
mean like the cops' white Ford Focus, the
Yes.
undercover plainclothes cops?
yeah, exactly. So I think that the defense is going to try and prove why you could be mistaken in those areas. I would love for law enforcement to take the damaged Hyundai 4-door white Elantra that is in, was it Colorado, right? Wait, not Colorado, Oregon, the Oregon white Hyundai Elantra, and backtrack that car. So you have the accident place. Well, where did it come from? Where was it at during the time of the crime? You know?
Right.
And I need to look back at all that video footage and those pictures that we have of the Oregon white Hyundai Elantra, and see if it has the right head unit to have a computer and a GPS chip.
Yeah, well, where is that car now? Is it long gone? Has it been taken to the junkyard and broke apart for spare parts? Like, where is it?
Yes. Hey,
did they check it out forensically?
Hey, Smith, we appreciate you for that. Law enforcement used pings. Expert is off metadata. Yes. The only thing is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to decide whether I want to go into the information around pings. They are claiming they used pings. However, they don't have enough towers there to have reliable pings, unfortunately. The geo blended data or meta type data, it is much more accurate if you're able to have multiple data sources to confirm the location. It can be much more accurate if you have GPS that can locate, and then you have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all these other things, because we know they don't have enough towers to triangulate. You need 4 towers to triangulate, 3 to give a precise enough location to be acceptable in court, and a 4th to quality control.
Yeah, and it's not just metadata that they're using. It's geo blended data that involves many different things. It's background app data, things like that. But
I go to the bathroom.
I don't know why people are so set on metadata. Like, yes, metadata can be used too, but that metadata, no, it's not metadata. It's metadata is, I mean, basically in the coding of like pictures and things, it's just background information. And it can be used obviously forensically, but within data on like the back end of an app, that's what you're looking at for what we're talking about with like GPS. Like, it's going to be recorded in that back end coding, if you know what I mean. Like, so that's why we're not calling it metadata. We're calling it like the RF technology, because that's what they're going to use to actually locate him, is the GPS and, you know, the radio towers and all of that stuff. Now, I'm curious.
And metadata is editable, by the way. I change all my metadata on all of my pictures, audio, video, and things like that. I strip all of it.
Right. So, and is metadata and background app data even considered the same thing?
Yeah,
I think so. So, okay. Do you think that Bryan Kohberger, okay, here's one big thing that I've been thinking about, is if Bryan Kohberger did not give over his phone to the police, he didn't allow them to access it, okay? He didn't give them the code. So all they could do was get warrants for certain companies, right? That's all they'd be able to do, right? They would get background app data through warrants to companies like Apple, Meta.
Not if he didn't give his phone over. You mean if he had a 6-digit PIN on an Apple phone and they were unable to gain access to his phone?
Yeah.
Yep.
So then they would have done warrants to specific companies like, oh,
correct.
Bryan Kohberger has a Facebook and an Instagram, so they get a Meta warrant. Bryan Kohberger has a Twitter, so they get a Twitter warrant, and they get all these application warrants, which then that's how they would find the background app data to do the location stuff, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the cops did not have access to his phone data, like the commands to know if he turned it off, like other apps they may not have even realized he had, because those accounts aren't public, then could the alibi have been hiding in that phone all along? And that's why Ann Taylor is confident, because she's taught, remember, in this alibi, she talks about pictures that Bryan Kohberger supposedly took while on his many trips to this area.
Yeah. Yep.
So did he give access to his phone to the defense?
Listen.
And that's how this expert is going to get the data to back up his alibi.
It's very possible.
Obviously, they're also going to be using law enforcement's own evidence against them, as Ann Taylor has been saying she's going to do.
It's very possible.
But I also wonder, on top of that, is it possible there's additional things that were in the phone law enforcement couldn't have had because he wouldn't let them, that they're using to corroborate this alibi? But Vinny is right. An alibi is usually about innocence. Like when you think about all the other people that have been looked at in this case, the frat boys, the own surviving, survivors, all the people they looked at that they cleared and said, oh, that couldn't have been them that did this to these victims.
Yeah. I'm just being honest. I wouldn't give access to my phone to law enforcement, just to be clear, for anything.
They all gave alibis. They all
they
said,
might have
oh, I was
supported it
here
with
with
their
this
phone.
person. Yeah, supposedly some did lie detector tests, some gave over their phone data, other things like that. I mean,
yeah,
that's an alibi typically. So again, Bryan Kohberger wasn't given that chance. But if there is really good exculpatory evidence here that without a shadow of a doubt puts him in a totally different place than the crime, then why isn't he being let go?
Yeah, I hear you. I have these same questions. I don't really know.
So is it
I
that
want
good?
to know the background of these things. I wish I could understand. I really, really do. Listen, if I was being accused or not, I would never give access to my phone, just because technology can be so, or if I did show the cops something in my phone, whether I'm innocent or guilty, I would only let them see it like in my hand. If they were trying to claim that I did some kind of crime and I didn't do it, I'd never open my phone up. Never for them. I just would not do that.
Okay, but why isn't he being let go? So the thing is,
we already know why. We've talked about this a lot. They are never going to back down. That is not an option.
I understand your point. So you're saying even if he had evidence that proved without a shadow of a doubt, 100%, he was somewhere else,
they're not going to back down.
They would not even drop the charges then.
No, they are not. They are too far into this, talking about multiple millions of dollars. This is going.
Isn't that corruption? Continuing. If somebody were to come out with a witness corroborated with factual evidence, but that you're missing the point that does happen. Prosecutors do drop charges. They do stop trials and say, this person, I don't have the evidence, so
They do
I'm gonna
not
let him
in
go.
cases this highly
I understand that
publicized.
point. I
So
understand that
it's not
point.
comparable. One is in the dark and one is in front of the entire world, and would have to have all these law enforcement officers, prosecutors, everyone involved in this entire case tuck their tail between their legs and be like, yo, we suck and we were wrong. It's not gonna happen. It is not. You have people running for political positions like sheriff because of this case, on the backs of this case. They are not ever dropping this. It is not happening. The defense can come out with incredible evidence proving that he was there, and they're going to have some reason why they're going to continue with these charges. That's my opinion. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but that's definitely my opinion. They are too dug in.
I get your point and I understand it. But if that's how it is, if ego is more important in our system than truth and justice, because at least if they admitted they're wrong, they could still find the real killer. Unfortunately, I think if Bryan Kohberger is exonerated in this trial, nobody's going to be looking for the real killer. They're going to say that was their guy and they lost him.
I agree. Unfortunately, I agree with you.
So, I mean, I think that obviously, you're probably right that even if he had legitimate exculpatory evidence, they would not allow him to leave. They would not let him go. I'm sure you are correct.
I hope I'm wrong.
But the thing is that's a major problem in our system then. Like a major problem. That's super corrupt.
Yeah.
To let ego and money and all these things matter more than real justice, like actual justice. So, I mean, and then it also makes me question, like, I mean, because obviously, if Bryan's innocent and Anne knows he's innocent, they're not going to come out in an alibi and just give everything away. I mean, you wouldn't do that anyway, even if he was guilty, because, you know, you want to maintain the integrity of your evidence and what you're bringing, your theory of the case, all of that. The defense doesn't have to give everything away. They're allowed to, you know, withhold things. But it makes me wonder, is there a serious distrust here between the defense and the prosecution?
Is there what? Say that again.
Serious distrust.
I don't know if it needs to be between the defense and the prosecution, because
yeah, but if you were a lawyer, say you were Bryan's lawyer and say he's innocent, and you're like, well, I have proof he was not even near this crime scene. He was in the opposite direction, okay? And they're like, well, then how does that explain the DNA? How did the DNA get there then?
Yeah.
Like, and you try to explain all these other things, and it's like, well, did they fabricate this case? Like, you would begin not trusting the system at all, wouldn't you? And be concerned about this evidence even coming out in court. No? Is that why Anne wants such a strict gag order on the case? Because she's all for the gag order. All for it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I've said before, and I just put a poll up asking what you guys think about the undeniable evidence. If they had it, would they drop the charges? I don't know. Listen, based off what I'm seeing from Bill Thompson and how Bill Thompson is acting, I don't believe Bill Thompson is bought into this conspiracy that is trying to put Bryan Kohberger down. Okay. I think Bill Thompson is in a really crappy situation and has been handed a giant silver platter, elephant-sized, horribly stinky piece of doo-doo to work with. And he's worried about his own detriment that he has to manage the case with this horrible evidence. So remember, when the defense comes out with information like this alibi, do I think the defense is worried about the prosecution having this evidence? No. Do I think the state or the defense is worried about investigators that have been involved and connected to this case? Yes, I do.
Okay.
All the flaws I see in this case are from the investigators.
Yeah,
all of them are from the investigators.
So thank you for this. We got a comment that a few pics with metadata is not enough for me. It needs to be a constant GPS signal. Well, the thing is that with the state's case, it's not even a constant signal. There is no cell data at the time of the crime. There's none. And then when we're going back to the stalking and trying to prove that he was stalking, it's literally impossible. They had a constant beat on where he was, and even their triangulation of where he was is going to be a wide radius. It is not going to be precise. They are not going to be able to put him even in the neighborhood. I do not believe they will be able to do that.
2 picks is enough for me, maybe 1 depending on what the evidence is, but that's because I understand and believe how reliable that metadata is. The only thing, you guys, that you got to understand, let's say they came forward with 2 pictures, okay, and they, like, let me give you an example of what we could see. Dang it, I should have wiped this off. Okay.
Is there Windex around here somewhere?
No. Okay. So let's say this is Wawa Way Park, okay? Let's say this is Wawa Way Park, right? You guys? At Wawa Way, there's a trail. Look, there's a trail. This is the trail outline from an overhead of Wawa Way Park. This is the starting point right here. Okay? Starting point of the trail. If there is a picture here, and let's say that picture was at 3 a.m.
You can't do things tiny. No one's gonna be able to see. You're gonna have to put it up close here in a minute so everyone can see.
I think they can get that. So 3 a.m. and then this distance is walked here. Okay, let's say this is a 30-minute trail. So halfway around takes 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then there's another picture taken here. So picture and picture taken here. And they're able to calculate the time. So let's say this picture gives a GPS location of this area on the trail. And then there's another one with the GPS location. And they're able to say, look, we can prove that Bryan Kohberger was on this trail right here because of this picture that was taken at the start and this picture that was taken 15 minutes into the hike. That to me would be very believable just from 2 pictures because somebody had to physically be there to get that information. That is not information you could just pull out of thin air. So the only option is Bryan Kohberger was there getting that, or somebody else had his phone and was there taking those pictures. Like, that is it. There is no accident. Oops. The network thought a phone was there. No, this is 2 pictures with data that can be mathematically calculated and proven that it is a walking distance amount of time around that trail, and then another picture taken here. Like that's good evidence.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Everybody was saying you're going to be selling your artwork at the end of the stream and calling you Van Gogh and Mona Lisa.
I should show them a piece of that. Yeah.
Okay. So somebody mentioned 1111 true crime in the comments, you guys, talking about the time with the 4chan. You guys, we've done extensive coverage on the 4chan theory and the times. And yeah, that is why it is one of the most plausible theories in this case for me, because it's pre-PCA. And I don't know how anybody would have gotten the timeline that tight and precise and correct. I just don't know how anybody would have known that. I don't know how anybody would know the inner workings, inner dynamics, intimate details, nicknames. You guys, Sigma Chi called Ethan E. That was his nickname. And that is what's used in the 4chan post. And nobody knew that. It took a while for us to verify that through a post, a social media post that Sigma Chi put out. You ruined it?
Yeah, I used gum in your thing to wipe off the ink.
Goo Gone. Okay, I'll bring some Goo Gone. Don't scrape it. That'll ruin it. I'll bring Goo Gone. It'll work. You just need oil or peanut butter. You got peanut butter? Peanut butter works too.
I was just licking it.
Girls know how to get gum off of things, because if you've ever got gum stuck in your hair, that's a tragedy. Okay. You have to find a way to get it out, or else you just have to cut off all your hair.
Yeah, why wouldn't you just do that?
What? Why wouldn't you want to just cut off all your hair?
Yeah, hair grows quick.
So yeah, the 4chan theory, when Brendan first brought that up and we talked about it, it instantly became a leading theory for me and above the rest.
My bid is $2. All right. I should make some cell phone network
art. Yeah.
You
know what I always wanted to do?
We appreciate you, Shaggy.
Yes,
thank you.
We do. You know what I always want to do was make that pour art, because it looks like anybody could do the
what's pour?
Pour, where you literally pour paint.
Oh.
And it's really fun and really cool. And I've seen people make stuff that looks so cool and abstract, and it looks like just incredible.
Yeah.
It looks so cool. Okay, anyway, moving on from art. So one thing that Vinny talked about is, he said, is this cell phone data going to be up for interpretation? It must be. Clearly, you have one expert saying one thing and the other expert from the other side saying the other thing. He said, so clearly, basically, it's not black and white. This is up for interpretation. And are the jurors going to see it that way? Are they going to see it as black and white, or are they going to see it as up for interpretation? What do you think?
It's not up for interpretation. It is not up for interpretation. It's not up for interpretation. There is no one side.
Okay, so what if you have a
he's saying, look, the defense is coming out with this information, but we have these experts over here. There is no other experts over there. They haven't came out with anything. Nothing. They haven't came out with anything. So there is no interpretation. In order for interpretation, you got to be able to have two pieces of information and a scale to gauge your interpretation. The only people who will have come out with cell phone evidence is the defense.
Okay, but obviously the state is going to have an expert that is going to refute what this expert's saying.
They are?
Yes.
I don't know how, other than explaining why, trying to come up with a reason saying that why there could be false readings or something. Otherwise, that's what I'm saying. This is science.
I understand your point, but the thing is this is court. And even though it's supposed to be all based off science and everything, somehow they'll have experts come from both sides arguing the same science and having totally different meanings and interpretations of that science.
Only on subjective
So
topics.
with the PCA, we clearly have an expert somewhere, whether you would call it an actual legitimate expert or not, or just Payne trying to wear that hat, saying Bryan went to this home 12 times in the past, that he did this big loop, and they're saying that's cell phone tower data that made them know he took this 1:10 loop up to Pullman from the crime scene. Apparently he never made that loop. And they're saying that's cell tower data that shows he made that loop from Moscow to Pullman. That is cell tower data.
I mean, they aren't saying he made that loop from Moscow to Pullman.
Yes, they are.
No, they're just saying that he was connected to a tower like outside of Moscow. That's where they first have his phone being picked up, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and they described the whole route. How do you think I mapped the route?
Yeah, I get that. That's the estimated route based off the cell phone coverage, though. Those aren't scientific pings saying his phone was here at this time, and this is how we've determined that by using these 3 towers and whatever. They just know he was connected to a tower that could give them this route.
So how do they get that if he was all the way over in Wawaway Park?
Maybe he wasn't at that time. Maybe he really did drive down to Clarksville area.
Clarkston.
Yeah, Clarkston.
Maybe. He apparently that after the crime did not drive to Clarkston, though. He did that.
According to who?
What do you mean? That's the whole loop. The loop doesn't go to Clarkston.
I get that, but that doesn't mean he wasn't down there. That doesn't mean he didn't drive some of the loop. That doesn't mean any of that. You can still go to that park.
The point is
for an hour to prove the unreliability of the cell phone coverage of the state and prosecution, and still go drive down to the Clarkston area and drive back up and hit all those same towers. You can still do that and not be in the Moscow area during the time of the crime.
I just don't understand.
There's no interpretation in a good science.
Yeah, but the thing is one expert is saying this, and then another expert is saying he was nowhere over there.
No, they aren't. There is no expert saying this. That's why I think a lot of people are confused with this. Nobody that is an expert has came out and said, 100%, we have the evidence proving Bryan Kohberger was in these areas with this cell phone data. That cell phone data isn't available. So they don't have an expert saying that.
So then how is Ray or whatever, the defense expert, going to say that he wasn't in the area if that data isn't available?
He's not there to say he wasn't in that area. He's there to prove where he was in another area. That's important, that distinction. I know it's saying the same thing, but the presentation is important. So if he can prove that he was in this other area using real science that there is no room for interpretation, then that proves that the state and the police don't have as sound of a case as they're saying they do. Because nowhere has the state said that he was in Wawaway Park for, an extended period of time.
Right.
Nobody. And if the science that the defense is going to be using is if he knows his stuff, that's not you can't interpretate that. It's going to give you a GPS location. It's going to give you a time. There's going to be some kind of math behind it, like the example I just showed everyone, saying, look, 2 pictures. They were taken at this much time apart, which is how long it takes to walk from this distance to this distance. You know?
Yeah.
There's no room for interpretation in something like that. So if you take that example I just gave everyone, okay, and I'll give an example of what background picture metadata can give, and we have no idea if that's what the defense is giving. They could give straight up GPS data by using an app when he didn't have cell phone service. It can still give you a GPS location from where the cell phone service lost data and all this other stuff. But let's say there's a picture, okay? And in that picture, it's Bryan, and he's taking a picture with the phone facing up at the stars, and he's like, you know, whatever. And on that picture in the metadata, it's going to give his GPS location on there. It's going to give the time. It's going to give the picture quality, the device that it's taken on. It's going to give all the details of the app, if it was taken in an app or if it was taken, you know, in photos and with a camera, and what that camera is and all the settings are. And then you're going to go to the next area, and it should be a different GPS location, and it should have a different time, and some of that information will be different. Like, how could that be interpreted different? It can't. There's no room for interpretation.
I don't know, but regardless, they're going to have experts battling in this situation. They're going to. So I don't know what to tell you. I know that for a fact. They're going to have experts battling this topic and trying to prove he was. That's my whole point in asking the question is, like, how is this going to play out in court? Like, so what is the state going to end up coming out and discrediting their own evidence in the PCA and saying, look, we realize you can't get cell data in this area. It sucks. So you can't prove he was over there. But look, we have him on footage driving to the crime scene. That's what really matters here. Is that what they're going to do? Like, what are they going to do?
I don't know.
Are they going to try to make their cell phone data seem accurate?
I wish I knew. Well, I mean, so those are 2 different things, right? So the state has primarily been leaning on triangulation. That's what they're talking about, okay? The defense clearly is using an expert in geo-blended data. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But he says that basically this alibi it's fighting words. Saying that, you know, the prosecution has either destroyed exculpatory evidence or withheld it, or not destroyed it, but, you know, not preserved it. He said these are fighting words.
Jeez.
Which I agree with Vinny. They kind of are fighting words, if I'm being honest. But
what?
Yeah, they are. They're saying if we don't get this evidence, that means the state withheld it or didn't preserve it. Those are fighting words. I agree, because they can get in trouble for that. That's against the law. If the state withheld exculpatory evidence or didn't preserve it, that is illegal. You can be disbarred. That's prosecutorial misconduct. Vinny Politan from Court TV, he has his own show. If you guys just hopped on, we were talking about some of the things he said in his recent little, you know, live stream he did. He has his own channel now.
I don't think they're.
And he was talking about the alibi. But anyway, last thing, I think this is the last thing, is the alibi corroborated by other evidence? The PCA says that they have cell data and video matching up, like we talked about earlier. There's data from before the crime and data after, but not during. And Vinny didn't feel like that could be a coincidence. The whole he turned his phone off or it wasn't connecting to a tower, that the data before and after that's a really strange coincidence.
Yeah, I got you.
And it couldn't be one.
Yeah, I got you. Just
so, but
understand
that
how
question,
easily the investigators could have made a mistake with that, though. You guys need to understand that, okay? We have this idea that Bryan Kohberger left his home and drove across the Pullman-Moscow highway, okay? What if you take that out of the equation? So they have video of him leaving his home, but as you're going to that highway, you make a right instead of going to Moscow, and the next picture the state has is that image of a 4-door Hyundai Elantra. But really, Bryan Kohberger made the right to Wawa Way or whatever. So like all the other evidence during the crime time, the time that they're saying the crime happened, is null and void.
Right.
Literally null and void. Because if you think about it, they're seeing Bryan Kohberger's phone connect to a tower, but they don't have enough towers to triangulate it, okay?
Right.
So maybe he drove close enough to the Moscow Pullman road to get picked up on a tower, that one tower, but then he took a right and it lost service. So he connected briefly and then lost service going to Wawa Way, and that's why they believe it's him. That is such an easy mix-up.
Okay, well.
Such an easy mix-up because they don't have any evidence of him at 1122 or electronic evidence, okay? Electronic evidence of him at 1122. I think that's a very probable outcome and mistake.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But I want to know, like, that same question, though. Vinny said, is the alibi corroborated by any other evidence? Is it? The pictures. Did he take pictures that night? Not just in the past when he went out there. Did he take pictures that night?
I hope he's a picture person if he's innocent.
I hope he is, too.
Because I'm not. I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have taken pictures?
No.
So, also, is there video footage of him headed that way throughout Pullman? Because they said they had video footage of him pulling back into Pullman. Was there video footage of him leaving Pullman in that direction? Like, what other corroborating evidence is there? Or does his car leave and then show up?
Yeah,
like
where does
on
he go
video
after
right.
Wawa Way?
Right, like, is there any video of his car over there? Also, Vinny.
Yeah, that's good.
Vinny, he said, can you still take pictures when your phone's in airplane mode?
Are you serious?
He turned his phone in airplane mode and then took a selfie to see if he could do it.
No. Are you serious?
And it's like, oh, yep, you could do it. I was like,
oh no. God. And these are our prosecutors, you guys.
That just goes to show you somebody can be a prosecutor with a ton of experience and know absolutely nothing about this kind of technology.
And I'm not making fun of them. It's silly, but like, listen, in all those law books that lawyers have, I bet you there's nothing in there teaching you the newest technology that, by the way, technology doubles in intelligence every 4.5 years.
Yeah, and I adore Vinny, you guys. I like Vinny. I really love Vinny. Yep. Okay, he's got a great personality, and I think he's very intelligent, and I like him in a lot of cases. This is just one. Again, there's so many people I respect and like that. Just when it comes to this case, I just can't with them. Because they're just so biased, but that's them, and that's okay. That's their own prerogative. We can disagree and remain respectful, and still like each other.
You
know, like we can disagree about anything. Agree. These cases, politics, and that doesn't mean we need to divide. That means we should just respect each other's opinions. Agree to disagree. Come on, we're adults.
Yep.
So. Anyway, I thought that was super funny and silly. One thing I also learned watching his personal channel is he's a type 1 diabetic. He was on there like drinking juice and checking his blood sugar and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, he's a type 1 diabetic.
Maybe he looks pretending to be diabetic because he watches our channel. It was like, man, I really want to seem like that cool guy Brendan. I'm gonna pretend. I'm just kidding.
He looks so young for his age, though. Like, he looks so good.
Yeah, he does. I
So
agree.
he must really take care of himself,
which is
because
great.
type
That's
1
good.
diabetes is rough.
hard. It is. Yeah.
It's
that-
really hard on your body.
And people don't realize like how much it affects you. It affects everything, you guys. If you're a type 1, I suggest you just get the pump, honestly, so you don't have to worry about it unless you're feeling like something's wrong. But like the diabetes, and even me, and my diabetes isn't that bad, you guys, but like when things are off, the depression, the cloudy headedness, the inability, and I have ADHD on top of it. So I'm already having issues with remembering and staying focused. And then diabetes just, sets that on fire and makes it 100 times worse. But it impacts your character, your focus, like every aspect of your life, not to mention it increases the likelihood that you're going to have other things go wrong. It messes up your teeth. And as you get old, it makes your bones weaker quicker. Like diabetes is a really tough one. And a lot of people that don't have it don't realize like how bad it is for you.
And you can't
everything like
right.
it affects everything.
Not to mention you got to pay so much attention to what you eat. I mean, really all of us need to be doing that at this point, though, not just people with diabetes. Like with how our food is now, all of us need to really pay attention to it. But yeah, it's a really tough disease, and I really feel for people who have it. I kind of wonder if I don't have like a form of like pre-diabetes sometimes, like where you just kind of have an insulin or sugar sensitivity.
They really don't understand diabetes that
well. There's several types of these sensitivities that are not diabetes, but there's these, I forget what they're all called, but there's several types where you can kind of have these diabetes symptoms, but you don't have diabetes. And my whole life, I've hated sugar. Like when I was a kid, I did not eat candy. I wanted real food. I wanted like nothing sugary. And it made me feel really sick. Like I was not a kid who'd want to get up and eat donuts in the morning. Like if my grandma was like, here's a special treat, here's a donut for the morning, I'd be like, please no. Because it would I would feel horrible. It would make me feel so sick. So I wondered if that's like just a natural thing. I learned from eating sugar that it was making me feel really bad because I had some kind of issue.
It could be. I don't know, because diabetes ranges so much for people. I see a lot of people commenting in the chat that they're either impacted by it personally or have family members, children that are impacted by it.
Hypoglycemia is one. It is one of them.
I'm going through it with you. I know how it is. Trust me, you guys. And as you guys know, like with my ADHD, I have very little sleep and I'm always working 2 different jobs, and it affects me a lot. So I understand what you guys are going through, and just hope it gets better and gets to a point where they can fix it. That would be awesome,
Yeah.
But you just do what you can do and try and reduce those cravings. One thing I've noticed with diabetes is I have cravings that I literally can't ignore. Like if I crave a certain food, I have to have it, and it ruins my diabetes. But yeah,
I think that's just an impulse control problem.
It totally could be. It totally could be.
It's an ADD thing, probably, because ADD, there's kind of like a thing with a lack of impulse control.
Yeah,
it could be that.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I have kind of cravings like that too. Like I get stuck on one food, like.
I can tell the difference between cravings, though, where I'll have a craving for a certain type of food where, like, okay, I want that, but I don't need it. But then I have other ones where, like, I can tell something's going on in my body, something is off, because it's like an animalistic craving. It's really strange. I don't know. It's weird, but anyways.
Great to know.
Yeah.
Animalistic cravings.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And a lot of times it's not even food, like it's grass or something. I'm just kidding.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean that was really it. Oh, there is one more thing. So You know how everybody keeps bringing up like the park would have been locked that night because they lock the gate at dusk, and that it was a cloudy night.
Yep.
Well, do we really, you guys? Like, really? Do we think the defense didn't know this before they put the alibi out? You really think they didn't look that up? Like, if that was our first thing to look up, because it was one of mine, is that you really think the defense didn't know it was a cloudy night and that the gate locks at that park at a certain time? They know that.
Yeah.
They know that.
Yeah.
So clearly there's more to this than we realize. And the thing is with, if you look at the map, like
Bryan Kohberger got locked in Pennsylvania at a park or whatever.
Yeah,
so
he did.
I'm telling you, all my life, if you can't go to sleep and you're one of those people where you want to go like night hiking, is it that big of a deal if you parked outside the gated area and walked in? You know, it's not like, oh my gosh, that little swinging gate that only blocks a car, not a person, that is like 3.5 feet tall, that you can literally step over, that was locked. So Bryan Kohberger couldn't have been in there. Oh, come on. You know?
Not only could he have went hiking through there if he just parked outside of the gate, and then went in there and went for a run in there or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at the map, like you see how do you pronounce it?
Wawa
Way? Okay. Wawa Way grade
right.
road.
Or
and it goes,
Wawa-way?
so like if you look at the map, you can see this Wawa Way road. It comes, I mean, there's Wawa Way Pullman Road, okay?
Here,
and that
pull it
goes
up. Hang on.
That goes all the way from Pullman down to Wawa Way Grade Road. And then you can follow that to the county park, which then it hooks around to the like south, and you can take Wawa Way Road all the way down Snake River. Like you are right on that river, driving down that road, and I'm sure it's pretty scenic, you guys. There's a mountain range there. You're driving along a river.
Where you're looking so I can show everyone?
No, that is not it.
Yeah, look, Wawa Way.
That is not it. You're in Moscow, I think.
No, I meant Northwest Wawa Way Road.
Okay. Well, we can start there. That's fine. Okay, so
show me where I go.
Share it.
Oh yeah,
I'll show you.
That's probably
okay.
Helpful.
Let go. I'll handle this.
Okay.
So
please do.
Okay, we need to zoom out a little bit because I can't see. Okay, it's right here. This is the road. Gotta zoom in. So you see this road is going all the way from Pullman, and it's Wawa Way Pullman Road. Okay, so he's gonna take that road all the way down to the river, to Snake River, and that's right where Wawa Way the campground and park is down here. So that's the park, this little green area right here. And look, he can take this Wawa Way Road all the way. It's right on the river. And this is a mountain range here. So you're driving along a river on a mountain range. That's beautiful. Why? And that, of course she's going to say Wawa Way Park area. So you don't even need to be in that gated park to visit that area.
No way. And this goes all the way to Clarkston.
It does go all the way to Clarkston. It absolutely does. And look, there's a road that connects it to that road that goes up to Johnston, Idaho.
Yeah.
No, I mean that little road in the middle. He didn't even need to go down all the way to Clarkston. No.
You're talking about this one right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Zoom in. Okay, zoom out. That road.
Yep, I got you.
It takes him down to Colton, where he could turn left and go up through Johnston and
Which he
back
could have
up to
still
Pullman.
connected to some of these towers.
He
or the
could have.
towers that were right here.
He
Yeah,
could have.
Okay. That's interesting.
Phil Morgan said super beautiful, and I've been there. It
Yeah.
is. I don't doubt it. It looks gorgeous from what I've seen.
Yeah, and
So
Twizzle Stick was saying that they went today there also, which was interesting.
And how did that
apparently
go?
On the way there, lost service, and it sounds like, based off what they're saying, and I believe you. I just don't have any objective evidence to share with all of our viewers on here. But it sounds like they lost complete service, complete service. So it would be nice to get some kind of example on the screen or something like that. I might be able to do something like that.
I just think it's really interesting that Huawei Road runs all the way down this beautiful scenic mountain range and river. And, to me, it doesn't make sense to be like, well, the gate was closed. He could have never got out of the car. He could have been driving all night, and just, they're saying around that park area because he regularly goes there as a landmark.
Yeah.
This is all Huawei Road. All these roads are called that. So it makes me think like they're considering all of that area Huawei Park.
Yeah.
It's like a national forest type place. Where it's the river, the mountain range. And again, it goes all the way down to Clarkston. You can connect over to Colton and Johnson, Johnson, Washington. And he could have totally hit some of those towers.
Yep.
That they used to make their own theory of how he got back to Pullman. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely
so
is.
That's why I think it's more deflection and just ridiculousness that people are, one, making fun of the stargazing thing, two, saying, well, it's locked, so this is BS, or it was cloudy, so this is BS. Like, I don't know. It just seems silly.
It does.
That's not what discredits it. It's if they have the evidence or not that matters.
Yep.
Like, that's not even what's important.
I do know. And I agree with you. And, yes, this has been such a big deal. We keep coming back to it, but we're learning more things about it literally every time. And the more we've talked about this, we've brought different details and things to it. And I did see you guys, Heather and Twizzle, talking about, you guys had questions, something related to cell phones. Just post it in a comment, or post it on social media, or post it wherever. I'll answer anybody's questions when it comes to technology. And if I don't know the answer off the top of my head, because I definitely don't know everything, I'll find out. So leave it in the comments, or maybe I will make some kind of community post.
Q&A? Is there a way to do a Q&A post?
Yeah, on here. We'll do it next time we go live.
Oh, next live we'll have a tech Q&A.
You messaged me on which one, because we have Thought Riot Podcast, and then we have personal accounts on.
Heather, I'll look on Discord.
Yeah,
I'm sure she means Discord. I haven't been on Discord much lately, but I'll get on there.
But yeah, we're gonna keep investigating it, because there are, with this alibi. Okay, one thing I will give to people that think he's guilty is this alibi gives the defense a 100% completely blank canvas to bring forward anything technology related.
You're right. You're right.
Anything.
It
Could be metadata. It can be triangulation. It can be geo-blended data. It can be Wi-Fi pickups, Bluetooth, phones within range, background application, location services. Like, you know, when you're on dating apps or whatever, they give a rough estimation how far people are from you or if they're in the same town. Like, how do you think it knows that?
Right.
It knows your location, and it's not getting your location from your cell phone company. It's getting your location from the background application data and that GPS chip in your phone, or chips, plural. So,
appreciate that, Twizzle.
yes, definitely. And I apologize if you sent me questions and stuff. I didn't mean to not answer them. We usually are very, very, very good about answering questions and everything. Stuff's just been crazy. Like I said earlier, I didn't share this on the last few, but we're looking at a new studio space for, you know, continued expansion and growth. So, and appreciate that, Gina. I seen that you said it a couple times. Thank you. On the members and subscribers, and thank everyone that's new on here. Most of our subscribers are international, so, you know, unfortunately, it's not like we're up to thousands of subscribers and viewers on our live streams yet, but hopefully it'll grow and expand and come back over to growing in the US and things like that. So, but we aren't in any rush. We're happy with everyone new that we have on here and the people that come and hang out with us in the chat. And Thought Riot Podcast is all because of you guys. And we will continue to try and answer your questions and talk about the topics you want to hear. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you turn your notifications on. I've heard of, what's interesting is we had a whole bunch of new members and subscribers, but then we have a whole bunch of people reaching out saying, hey, I was removed without even like removing myself from your being a subscriber. So just check your subscriber stuff. Make sure you turn on your notifications. And one reminder is, when you're on a phone, you can turn on notifications and turn on to alert you for everything. And then when you're on a computer, you have to go back in there again and turn it on again. It's like it changes for every device. So then when people are on a TV and maybe waiting for a notification, if it's not turned on your TV and you did it through your phone, then you're not going to receive that notification. You literally have to do it on every device. And shout out, Cynthia. We appreciate you and appreciate that. We will continue working hard to keep up the good work. One thing I'm worried about is if and when we switch studios, gosh, it's going to be a lot of moving, you guys. We have a lot of backgrounds in here and a lot of
it's going to be a lot
things that have built, and we have like 12 computers in here. So I hope we're going to be able to do it in a day, but I'm worried that there's going to have to be some days off in between. We'll see.
Oh, and yeah, thank you, Cynthia. I meant to say appreciate the super chat,
yes,
and we appreciate
awesome.
all of you a ton.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I will look at those messages, you guys. I absolutely will go and look at those messages. So all right, you guys, that is it for the True Crime Talk Show, brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast. Make sure you guys continue leaving comments under the video. When the stream ends, it will pop up and be easier to find. When we are live streaming, you can swipe over and leave a comment while the video is live, but it's easier once it's not. So if you leave a comment, we appreciate you for that. The engagement helps with the show and the True Crime Talk Show and Thought Riot Podcast. And we are here for all of you. So just keep being amazing like you guys are. And this is my favorite part of the day. I love getting in front of the camera and having conversations and think taking and growing and everything else. So yeah, thank you all.
Yes. And we will see you guys next time. I hope you all have a great night.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you all and see you next time.
Bye.